Clang! Clang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang. Clang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang-a-lang.
My name is Bond. James Bond. Since we first met, you've joined me on 9 of my missions. My latest, and if I'm not careful, my last assignment, will take me to new heights of adventure. New depths of danger. And new areas of excitement.
I have a message for you.
I think you just delivered it. I will come to grips with my most formidable adversaries, be up against the most fascinating women, and handle some of the most fantastic equipment you've ever seen. It won't be easy. But every job has its rewards. In this case, it's the spy who loved me.
The Spy Who Loved Me is a 1977 spy film, the 10th in the James Bond series, produced by Eon Productions. It is the third to star Roger Moore as the fictional secret agent James Bond, and the second to be directed by Lewis Gilbert. The film co-stars Barbara Bach and Kurt Jurgens. The screenplay was by Christopher Wood and Richard Maybaum, with an uncredited rewrite by Tom Mankiewicz. The film takes its title from the Ian Fleming's 1962 novel The Spy Who Loved Me, the 10th book in the James Bond series, though it does not contain any elements of the novel's plot. The storyline involves a reclusive megalomaniac named Karl Stromberg, who plans to destroy the world and create a new civilization under the sea. Bond teams up with Soviet agent Anya Amosova to stop Stromberg, all while being hunted by Stromberg's powerful henchman, Jaws. It was shot from August to December 1976 on location in Egypt and Italy, with underwater scenes filmed at the Bahamas and a new soundstage built at Pinewood Studios for a massive set which depicted the interior of a supertanker.
It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Bond. And beyond. Roger Moore is James Bond.
Handsome but deadly.
In the newest, most fantastic 007 adventure of all.
The Spy Who Loved Me. Rated PG.
There, Roger, you're about that much below your second button.
Ah, Spencer, why?
Almost crunch.
Is that button going to give you a glare and sparkle in the lens or anything like that? You have to brush it down or something? No.
Get out of it. Put anti-flare on your head.
Okay, that's the first...
Right, my name is Bond, James Bond. My latest, and if I'm not careful, my last assignment, will take me to new heights of adventure. New depths of danger. New dimensions of villainy and fascinating new women. But every job has its rewards. In this case, it's 5% for movie. Thank you.
I think the boys do everything, but I motivate it. At least I think I do, and I think it's the word confidence that really is the big important thing in our industry as a whole. We've been fortunate to have the Bond. Now, there's no secret about that. I think the mere fact that we were lucky to stumble upon Ian Fleming and Bond was a bit of good fortune. The rest was all hard work. To keep the series going year after year, the rest is up to the boys to do the work, the performers, the actors, the directors. But the fact that we have confidence in it is important, and the reason we have confidence in Bond is that we have a ready-made audience out there waiting to see a Bond film.
My name is Bond. James Bond. My latest, and if I'm not careful, my last assignment, will take me to new heights of adventure, new depths of danger, new dimensions of villainy, and fascinating new women. But every job has its rewards. In this case, it's The Spy Who Loved Me.
The Spy Who Loved Me is the 10th James Bond film. Its producer, Albert or Cubby Broccoli, is the subject of this, the first of 8 programs about the making of a Bond film. Broccoli is an American film producer who's worked for 25 years in England, initially on films such as The Red Beret with Alan Ladd and The Trials of Oscar Wilde with Peter Finch. In 1962, he produced Dr. No in partnership with Harry Saltzman. Broccoli and Saltzman continued their partnership for 9 of the successful Bond films. The 10th James Bond film is being made at Pinewood like its predecessors, but this time Broccoli is the sole producer.
Well, I think in a Bond film that you must have the huge sets, the huge quality, the bizarre, which the audience expects. The youngsters and the other Bond goers, they expect us to put a lot on the screen. And in this case, I think we are putting a lot on the screen. Aside from that, we're on locations which I think are of great interest. We're going to Egypt, Luxor, and Valley of the Kings, and Cairo, and shooting some interesting scenes there. Very exciting, interesting scenes. And also in Sardinia. We need those new backgrounds because we've been to Nassau and various places time and again on the Bond films. We're changing our locales in the story. The title always intrigued me, The Spy Who Loved Me. It's a very good Fleming title. And since Fleming himself never really wanted this film to be, the story to be filmed, for whatever reason, we did have permission to make the film from the title alone with the Fleming estate. And we proceeded, as we always have done, with Richard Maybaum to start, who has been the first writer who did Dr. No and a lot of the others. And we started to basically experiment and find the plot of the story with Maybaum. Later on, when the director was chosen, which is Lewis Gilbert, who's done an excellent job of the film, he suggested bringing in Christopher Wood, who he'd worked with.
When I started, it was very much a question of, read this and what do you think? Since I knew Lewis very well, the director, and since I worked with him before, it was quite easy to just talk to him as a chum about, where one thought things could be strengthened, or where one thought there were too many characters, where one thought one lost sight of the storyline. And from then it was a question of drafting out a storyline and then talking to Cubby and Mike Wilson.
The first time we met Christopher, what we had to make sure was that we had a good basic plot and a good relationship between Anya and Bond, because the whole story won't fit together. All these little bumps, we call them, the ski jumps and the fights with Jaws, and all these things don't mean anything unless the story holds together. So our initial attack on the story when we first met in Paris was to see whether the relationship between the main characters and the basic plot was solid and good.
Strangely enough, I guess most writers hate the idea of writing by committee with the writers, directors and the producers and everyone else. But strangely enough, that's been the success of Bond. They've always been written by committee, so to speak. The writer and the director, we sat and talked about it. And you can only talk about it. Say, what if this happened? And what if that happened? And that's the way it works with us. It's probably not the usual way. I'm sure that you couldn't get some very high-priced writer to sit in a committee and work like this, they would be appalled at the idea of having to talk to the producer. But in the case of Bond, they might understand, as Christopher Wood understood.
I remember in one instance in a piece in the script, in the film, I developed the idea of having a motorcycle combination, a sidecar and a motorcycle. The sidecar breaks away and becomes a rocket which chases Bond when he's in a car. Now, in the way that I had written it at that stage, Bond took evasive action and drove off the road. The sidecar exploded against a wall, blew a big hole in the wall, and that was the end of the sequence. Now, somebody in the art department threw out the idea that why shouldn't the sidecar be more effective if the sidecar hit another vehicle? As a result of that idea, which was a good idea, we talked about it.
Peter Lamont.
Peter Lamont, I think.
Yes.
So that then made me think, and I thought, yes, that is more effective if it hits another vehicle rather than just hitting a piece of wall and blowing into space. And what would be better than hitting a vehicle, or how could you build something extra into hitting a vehicle, other than just a blinding flash and bits of explosive material blowing all over the place? Supposing one made that vehicle something unusual, like, as we did do, a vehicle that was carrying a load of feather mattresses, so that when you explode the vehicle, boom, instead of just a big bang, you get a big bang of millions and millions of feathers.
Disagreements do develop, and it's good, because that, I think, is what does make a good screenplay. Lewis felt that maybe we wouldn't need the train sequence, mainly because he felt we had done train sequences before. In Russia with Love, and in Live and Let Die, we had a train sequence. But trains are exciting, and planes are exciting, and anything is exciting as a set piece. And I didn't quite agree with that, because the idea that we had suited the script. And as I say, I'm not very dogmatic about it. I listened to reasoning about it and the reasons. Then I suggested, why don't we develop the sequence? And when the sequence is developed, we finally decided that it was a very favorable sequence for the villain, whose name is Jaws, Richard Keel, and for Roger Moore.
However great you think you are, your work's going to be cut, changed. However great you think you are, your work's going to be cut, changed. Any number of other writers can be brought in at any moment to change your work. You might find that 5 other writers are working on your script at the same time. I mean, it has happened. When he gets in front of the cameras, the director might decide to cut and change a scene. If they're shooting on location, you're not there, he might have a better idea. An actor may not be able to speak a line, and it's taken out. You just have to accept that. I mean, if you are so terribly finicky and caring about your work, you can't bear to see anything touched. If you're a very temperamental and hypersensitive person, then the film industry is not the place for you.
We originally started this film with another director, Guy Hamilton, who did several Bond films. But we were late in starting, and he had another commitment, so he left us, and so we had to start with someone else. So I contacted Louis Gilbert, who did You Only Live Twice, and is a very dear friend of mine and a very fine director, and he agreed to do it.
Fortunately, Cubby and I have a very good rapport, and we don't often think differently. And that's a huge advantage, because then any arguments that we may have are simplified arguments, and we know that we're both doing it for the sake of the film, and we don't think it's anything personal if we have a little shout, But it's a lot depends on that rapport. I mean, it is a marriage, because you're together for a year or more sometimes, and you better be right. It is really like a marriage, and don't go in with the wrong one.
Bill Cartledge is plays a very, very key role. And he does the day-to-day planning of the film, and is a very important key man. I mean, associate producer plays the most important role in my life in this office, because he watches everything, he makes decisions cost-wise and things, comes into me if he wants to and asks me about it, but he's very knowledgeable about this sort of thing, and he many times has to make a decision on his own, especially if I'm not here, although he normally works very closely with this office. But he is a very important man in our organization.
Being an associate producer on a film of this size is a difficult job, really, because you cannot possibly hope to control every aspect of the picture. In an ideal world, one would have everything channeled at least through your brain once, in the sense that you either discuss everything or you see everything that's on paper that goes through. Well, certainly I try and see everything that goes through the production side, which in fact is the whole picture. But of course, because it's such an enormous film, the heads of department on a film of this nature must have a larger executive responsibility to their own department than they normally would. My job really is to supervise those heads of department.
Ken Adam is another key man in the organization, and he is a beautiful designer. He's a little overzealous sometimes in his spending, but we have our contacts with him. Part of the Bill Cartledge role is to sort of ride herd on that department as well as some of the other departments. But you can get carried away, you know, when you're designing things, and they have to be made, and then they have to be built. And it is one of the problems that Ken has, too. I don't say that critically. But it's also part of the success of the film is to have these huge, beautiful sets. So we recognize that. It's a question of coming to a happy medium, and that's my role, is to eliminate some of the things where he gets a little bit overzealous.
Well, I find it very difficult to submit a budget in the first place, but I can more or less judge when somebody tells me a story or a story outline on a bond, how much roughly it's going to cost, give or take a little. And normally the producers are very surprised at that stage. And in the end, it's going to cost that much. And if I feel the contribution I give is important to the picture, I'll fight tooth and nail to get it on the screen.
One of the major decisions of the picture is to build the world's largest film stage to house Ken Adams' set. It contains the interior of a supertanker that swallows 3 nuclear submarines. The cost is in the region of £1 million.
The money came from my company, Eon Productions, and from United Artists. United Artists' responsibility is their role to finance the picture, so it came from them. But there was no other way to do it. We tried finding locations where we could find a huge hangar or something. But then you see, hangars are miles and miles away, and when you get there, they say, oh, well, you won't be able to shoot at a certain time, or we can't let you have it until next year, and so forth. And that's where my decision has to come in, and that's where my decision did come in. We'll have to build the stage in the studio, because it required a big tank as well to float these submarines in there, see the water. And that's where I discussed it with United Artists, and they said, well, go ahead, do it. They have experts too, budgets and costing, and they send experts in, and even on this one, to see where we could cut, so forth and so on. And we try, but very difficult, you know, to cut out a picture of this size. So it came out as we expected it would, to that amount, that $13 million budget.
We've started the budget 3 times on this picture. It's never ever been finished because America's got rather angry and impatient, saying, what guess ahead? I had to guess ahead each time. And the things, you know, have been colossal sum of money, which I can't quote. And they've said stop. We had nasty meetings and cut the sets and cut the schedule and much yelling and shouting going on. And we've now finally finished it on the present 18-week schedule.
Bill, I was going over the fact that when we rescheduled the picture at the suggestion of United Artists specialists, how did we come out on that maneuver when we rescheduled from Sardinia to Egypt?
Well, on paper, of course, it appeared as though we were making a saving because what it meant, in fact, was that the second unit were going to be working longer in Sardinia, which would, of course, have enabled us to pull the first unit out quickly from Sardinia and get to Egypt on time and on schedule. Now, the snag was, in practice, that it meant sending the second unit to Sardinia earlier than the first unit. Now, obviously this meant the second unit were there for a longer space of time, and that was quite costly.
How do we come out on the budget
well,
doing that?
What happened, it meant that we went back to the original budget of about $13 million in terms of cost, because the second unit was more costly by virtue of the length of time it was going to be there.
I see. On some of the locations, as in the case of when we moved from Cairo to Luxor, the catering vans which took off, to start with, they broke down and they were involved in an accident or something, and they were held over, toting the whole kitchen. And then when they did arrive, they arrived on the wrong side of the Nile, so you couldn't ship the thing over. And eventually, you know, I could see a lot of very upset technicians and workmen on them. And I very quickly had to think what I could do. So being a sort of a cook around the house, and I do a lot of amateur cooking, I decided I would cook up a big spaghetti do for the boys, because I knew they all liked that sort of thing. And I scurried around Luxor, getting all of the cans of tomatoes, 2 cans here, and looking very sure to find out that they were made either in Italy or in Great Britain or France or someplace. I didn't want to get anything that was made in Luxor, because I saw some things they made in Luxor. And finally managed to get enough tomatoes and tomato paste and olive oil. And I had to fly someone into Cairo to get the spaghetti. That was, anyway, it all worked out so that I got this all together and then shipped it across the Nile to this cook station we had there, and had to cook about 25 or 30 pounds of spaghetti for about 200 people, you know, with the rest of the lunch that we organized. And they really loved that. That took them from, you know, from the dumps right up, because they all had 2 or 3 helpings of spaghetti, and there I was, sweating away with flies. But they liked that sort of thing, and you know, that I would do that. And I enjoyed doing it. I hope my own ego permits me to think that I'm a creative producer, that I work with the writers and the director on the story, and I'm always on the set, hardly ever away from where the work is. Regardless of where the location is, I'm on the location at all times. And that's my role. I mean, decisions have to be made. Wrong or right, I have to make them.
From the aft deck of a nuclear submarine, Sir Harold pronounced himself in favour of the British film industry thinking big. And that's just how it was. In every way, the opening of the newest Pinewood lot was an event of pure extravagance. Appropriately, 007 himself arrived in futuristic style, and then accompanied the ex-Prime Minister around the world's biggest film stage. The 380-foot-long set for the latest British production of James Bond includes 3 full-size submarines, floating in 1.2 million gallons of water, all of it contained within the mock-up of a 600,000-ton supertanker. Additional attractions included girls from the cast stripping off their minks in sub-zero temperatures, all in the name of publicity. The bill for the set, £1 million. but as the film's producer put it, a sure sign of confidence in what is too often labelled an ailing British industry.
In December 1976, the British news media offered the public its first sight of this elaborate and costly set, which was to provide a background for the final sequences of the 10th James Bond film. In this, the second of 8 programs about the making of The Spy Who Loved Me, we'll be looking at the work of the man who designed this and all the other sets on the film. A distinguished production designer, his credits include Dr. Strangelove, Sleuth, and an Academy Award for Barry Lyndon, as well as 5 earlier Bond pictures. In these programs, our aim is to get the filmmakers to tell their own story. We begin with the film's producer, Albert or Cubby Broccoli.
The overall design of the picture is controlled by myself, the producer of the film, and who I choose. I choose Ken Adam because from Dr. No on, he's contributed a very important element to the production quality of the film. And I don't say he's indispensable, I mean, but he's preferable. And in my opinion, he's one of the big contributors to the film.
I don't think there is a line you can draw around my role. You know, obviously, I'm not involved in the actual production aspect of the picture and so on, but on a Bond, certainly the Bonds I'm involved with, I have to work very closely with the director, and sometimes, you know, I create certain situations and then we argue them out, and if he thinks they're interesting and good, well then we adapt them.
Before the set itself is completed, Lewis Gilbert, the director, discusses his requirements using a scale model.
I can see it okay with the second and third, fourth cameras, sort of when you get right into the set. But you know, nobody's ever designed a set this long and this wide, whether the amount of focus from here to there will...
Well, I think, you know, what will lead you into the set, and which is going to be the submarine. Because remember, that's going to be pretty big in foreground, so that'll give you a sort of third dimension. And then we have the battery lights on the lift.
Now, did he say those could come on as well as all the non-practical lights? I mean, can he control all those 40 lights?
Yes.
So everything will come on together.
Yeah. And then I think we just get a bit of side lighting through these louvers, you know, sort of soft side lighting through them. My feeling is the set will look, in fact, better when you get inside it and you're getting closer to the lift shafts and gantries. But I mean, as the submarine goes in...
Into darkness.
Into darkness, and, you know, with a high fin and the conning tower, I think that'll give you a very good
because I discussed with Claude yesterday, actually, that I thought the best way of showing the set was to suddenly switch on all the lights.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You think because it is interesting, I think, if this was absolutely total darkness, just a vague outline of the submarine going, and you weren't going to know what you were going into.
The most creative tensions are created with the producer, because the producer is basically responsible for the financial aspect of the film. And so he is, you know, he's a dual personality. I mean, first of all, there aren't that many artistic producers around. And so very often their first consideration is cost and that sort of thing. So that's why it's very important that you have a very close relationship with the director, because finally it's the director who's going to make or break the picture. What I suggest, Nicky, we ask John Fenner to get out, or somebody early, to get out the steel drawing.
Yes.
And see what we can do about it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
When do they reckon to be through now?
What, the actual still work? Well, the sounding part on 30 to be, it makes it a practical proposition. You've got it all over the place.
So it means they become a design point now. Yeah. I mean, there's so many spots where they could all be hidden here, you know, I don't... You know, first of all, I mean, whereas the size of a supertanker is impressive in itself, you then have to come up with some sort of interior design concept. And I knew that the 3 submarines would be very impressive in themselves, so I kept the interior basically as simple as possible. and tried to come up with some interesting shapes and levels. And I think possibly the best, if you have a look at this, I think this was one of my first scribbles. So I came up, with a sort of center gantry and two outside gantries and gantries across, always composing on a Panavision frame. In fact, the design of the super tanker interior finally influenced us to shoot the picture in Panavision, because in ordinary Academy size or 185, it would have looked, quite not as impressive. And then from that, you see, these two vertical lines which pleased me, then I justified them by saying they could be lift shafts, in any case, going from one level to another level. And finally ended up with, a much more slick drawing, but it sort of came out of these rough scribbles. Recently, I've been running all the old Bond films that I designed, and I found, for instance, that Dr. No was one style. Then Goldfinger, I felt I came up with a new approach. But then from Goldfinger through Thunderball to You Only Live Twice, there didn't seem to be much change. I mean, I had to come up with sort of new ideas in terms of materials and metals and all that sort of thing. Possibly You Only Live Twice, I mean, with the volcano set and things like that, it became bigger and more impressive. But then again, Diamonds Forever, I didn't think there was a stylistic change, and that's why I hope there will be a stylistic change on this one. Producers and distributors always want to cut you down if they can on cost. But, the cost is very often built into the story, and if you deal with certain elements in the story which need a big canvas, you can do it possibly more economically, but it's still going to cost a great deal of money. Obviously, I could not wait for them to complete excavating the tank and building the stage before building my set. So you see probably one or two A-frames going up, which were the sort of basic structure of the stage. And once they started putting up the next section or third section of A-frames, we were then already able to start building the set. And so all the steel work for the set went on concurrently with the construction of the actual stage. I don't think we came across any particular problems. Of course, at the same time there was a tank, an existing tank, which was very small, so we had to lengthen it by about 300 feet.
At the end of a long working day, Ken Adam likes to discuss outstanding design problems with his staff. Even the colour and design of Bond's parachute are within the range of his responsibility.
Yeah. Have we got to match that colour?
Well, I don't think we need to match that bit.
Yeah.
It's only really the outside, because this was against his body.
Yeah.
Right. The main thing is he gets it on as easy as possible. Just slings it across his shoulder. But we can't have all this stuff on it, or it's going to be the giveaway.
And who made this one up? I don't understand.
Well, it came back. The fellow who did the job, he got what he could in America to near enough match it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we can do a better job.
I think so.
And incidentally, he doesn't pick up his skis as he leaves the hut, Have you decided what we're going to use for snow?
Oh yeah, we're going to get some of Derek's stuff. We're going to put down a layer of a soft layer to start with sandbags or something, spray it with this polyurethane stuff. Yeah. And then we thought we'd finally dress it up with salt.
Mm-hmm.
We can then
it'll make a crunching noise and so on.
Yeah.
That's great. Tell me, so here we've decided drapes are going to do that. Has Charlie any problems?
No, I think it's fine.
Yeah. We start talking about a Bond image. We might have sort of created a form of style which developed with Bond films, whereas initially we kept very much to the Fleming books. Later on we found that A, the books became rarer and the stories less filmable. And so also the visual and entertainment aspect of the film became very important. By that I mean it became like a large sideshow, a series of exciting acts and action. And so if we talk about image, maybe that's what you mean. Also the slightly bigger than life approach to it. And all that really makes it quite fascinating to work on.
Well, we're building them in. The bumper here has got to flip up so that we get an easy flow of water from the motors past the bumper.
And they reckon they'll be powerful enough to propel.
Well, they're putting 4 in there.
Yeah.
So it should be all right.
Yeah.
And these are the...
And these are the actual shutters, and then...
These are the shutters that are over it all the time.
Right, right.
And the periscope, as you can see, is quite small, but very dainty.
Yeah, yeah, well, that looks great.
When it goes down, you can't see it at all. And here are the missiles, for firing the missiles.
Tell me, are the people from Miami coming over? Or... Oh, that's a flap that...
Yes, we haven't put the missile launchers in there at the moment. Normally they have the Lotus name right on the brake line.
Right.
You see these 4 holes here?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's where the Lotus fires the missile that
shoots down the helicopter. Right.
I mean, this is a dummy.
Yeah.
But on the practical one, we've got the actual roller blind, which will roll up, and then we change it for one of these with the opening hatch.
Okay, well, I think it looks great.
Other than that, I haven't got any problem.
I hope it'll all work.
We start off in a panic, usually. But having read the script, you break down the script and decide between the director and yourself what is your part of it. And you work out all the gimmicks in the film. Then you start designing them. Mainly, the designs come from Ken Adams. He comes out with a design, and we have to make it work. Like the gun that we're going to show you.
Well, this is called a Cox gun, and in the picture, the baddies fired into a submarine belonging to the goodies. It's powered with compressed air, and it's loaded like this. There's a tube here which is, in the picture, connected to cyanide gas, and the crew of the submarine are given an ultimatum: come out or get gassed. They come out. It's fired like this.
Well, I've been attached to the art department to start off with, advising on the design of these things, the sizes of things, of propellers and foreplanes, and the overall size of the submarine, and the building of the interior sets. We're going to build a complete interior of a Polaris nuclear submarine. The submarine that we had to get the bits out of was an old World War II class submarine, and we had to get stuff that was either still in service or that would look like stuff that was still in service. And we had to carry very, very heavy bits of equipment out of this tiny little hatchway. We went on board a frigate. When we went down for a recce, and some of the people from the art department were looking up and say, well, look, we'll have a few pipes here and a few pipes here, and we'll have this run of cabling. It all looks really realistic. It's terrific. However, when we got down there, we found that it took about 6 people to lift a 15-foot run, and somehow we've got to fit this inside the set.
I have a theory, rightly or wrongly, that I think we should, in many films, obviously you can't generalize, but in many films, go back to the magic of the old Hollywood studio days, when we created, or when they created, a sort of artificiality and magic, which we seem to have lost a great deal. I mean, everybody has seen every type of sunset, seascape, blue sky, green fields, and so on, beautifully done in commercials and television or documentaries and so on. Whereas the artificiality of a studio picture, where you create whatever the director or designer, you know, the sky is the limit, is a form of escapism, I think, for the audiences, because they can see every sunset themselves today, you know. Yes, I'm not quite sure whether we need that
ring there. I mean, if that ring is stronger, this whole thing would be in perspective, isn't it?
Sure, yeah. It might help with the rail coming around there too. Might be able to see more, I don't know, on that point.
And I mean, the main action, the fight will take place on the upper gantry. And then how can they get from the upper gantry to the lower gantry along those ladders?
Yeah, and these three pools of light just coming down on this water, which I think could be quite a good effect there.
Yeah. My feeling is that this whole thing should be treated in gunmetal too. It should really be vicious looking, somehow like a gun, you know? Yeah, much stronger looking.
As she comes down, so we get as if she's been really pushed.
Yeah. And tell me, how much of this is going to be the actual studio tank?
Well, we hope to bring it round here more, I think, if we can.
But I mean, is the actual tank on the stage big enough to take that whole area in?
More or less.
Yeah. Now we can get the actual artist coming down the shoot.
Yeah.
I should have to draw the water. I'm not. Okay, fine.
Right, great.
Annie, have you done the detail for the fountain? The initial concept of the control room of the Kronos was this. Another concept of mine was an operations room in this structure, or that structure, with a sort of gigantic perspex globe to get away from television monitors and that sort of thing. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a phone call from the director saying that they've written this scene out of Atlantis. And could I incorporate this concept in this control room? Which is not, I mean, you know, even design-wise, it's one problem, but the next thing is, you know, you're dealing with 200-foot spans and steelwork, which has been ordered. So then I came up with a sort of compromise design, which basically is over here. And you see, what I did, I sort of constructed like a cupola across the control room and incorporated like a semi-circular amphitheater with a globe in the center. But these are sort of things one has to cope with. Well, I'm taking a 5 milligram Valium at nighttime, if that's what you mean. No, because you do work under nervous strain. It depends, you know. And particularly at this stage we are now, when we are 5 days away or 6 days away from shooting, obviously everything is building up. And the sort of thing I find when I sketch all day long, that at nighttime, when I'm trying to sleep, I live with these sketches, and I mean, they take on nightmarish proportions, which have absolutely no bearing at all on the actual problems involved.
Yeah, okay. Let's just do a close-up of Roger. Okay. Well, what do you think of those rushes? Did you think that was a good angle?
Yeah, fabulous. I loved it. You know, it was amazing how you didn't see the trees or anything outside with the doors open.
Yeah. Well, I think that...
you know, I felt it would flare out, but I think the idea of putting the smoke across it worked.
Yes, I think so. Well, I think that, you know, I was a bit worried because I didn't really want to do a matte shot there, because I think that from way back there it didn't really look anything, but I think
from
to get
here.
From here was all right, but from back there, I think that those doors, when they open, and you know, if you cloud it with smoke, I think it'll obscure the trees and everything. I don't think you'd ever know really what
and also
it is.
you get the true reflection of the daylight.
Well, that's right. I think the mixture of daylight and artificial lighting really made the set, I think, because it looked, you know, you really felt there was an ocean out there, which is very difficult to put over, you know.
I think so too.
I don't know, the only other thing that worries me now is how we're going to cut off the staircase.
If I drop from the top something like a semi-sphere over the staircase, that should work.
Well, you'll need two.
Two on either side. Yeah.
That's a big job, isn't it? What will you do? As it come down, will it?
Yeah, it'll come down from the top.
Over the top of it?
Yeah.
That might work.
And I think...
Ken's designs do require a lot of money, maybe a little bit more, maybe a lot more than some of the other designers. That isn't really the element, though, that makes it important. He believes in building things that, I mean, as in the question of the submarines, and as in the question of this huge tank and huge set that we have where we have these 3 submarines, which are supposed to be in the interior of a huge tanker which swallows these 3 submarines at sea. That imagination and that concept that he designs is unique and important to the film.
Ready? Turn over.
Well, you knew how obsessed I was by it, so you should know how happy I was.
The strategy with Barbara Bach is, of course, to make her into a new star. She starts off, first of all, being selected by Cubby Broccoli, which is part of the job. Cubby knows exactly what a Bond girl should be, and from that point on, we take over to a large extent, and this involves not only making her into a well-known worldwide personality, but also principally a tool for selling a new Bond film.
We selected her because, in our humble opinion, she's a very fine actress. She's a very beautiful girl. She is comparatively unknown, which I think brings a certain freshness to a Bond film. We have explored getting various well-known ladies, high-priced ladies, to bring in, but in my humble opinion, there is no lady today that contributes that much success, if she's high-priced or otherwise, unless we like what she does.
I mean, we must have seen hundreds of girls, you know, to try and find a sort of mature woman. I mean, you know, you could not use a 21-year-old girl as a Russian spy, as the greatest Russian spy. And we had to have someone sort of 28-ish rather than somebody of 21-ish. It's rather difficult, because unless a girl has sort of made some sort of impact by 28, it was really quite difficult to find somebody of 28 who was unknown, because as you know, in Bond films, they do tend to like to find somebody unknown and not somebody who is existing.
We have explored a certain lady in Hollywood who commands a $500,000 wage, which went from 200 to 300, and then some very notable British gentleman did the philanthropic thing and gave her 500,000, and that blew her right out of the box for me, because she contributed nothing more than Barbara Bach will.
By chance, we were very much up against it, because there was only about 2 weeks to go before, and we really didn't have a leading lady, which was really getting desperate. And then I saw a test which had been made by Tony Richardson for another picture. It was a very good test. And I immediately had her flown over from Rome. I mean, you can do that on a Bond picture, you know, they fly in from all over the world. And she flew in, and we did a test of her, and she was very good, and she got the part. It was just like that, very simple, out of the blue for her. She had no idea. It was a big surprise for her.
Well, before this film, I had done Italian films mostly, and a few French films, but nothing really in English. This is the first English-speaking film that I'm doing.
Although you're actually American.
Yes, I am. And the accent you hear now is the accent I use in the film, and I don't want to stop using it now, so I might forget it.
Could you tell us how you were cast in The Spy Who Loved Me?
Yes, Cubby Broccoli saw a tape that I have, which has different pieces of the different films that I've done, and he liked it very much, especially a test I did with Tony Richardson. And they called me and asked me to come over, and I did a test with Louis Gilbert, and they liked it, and that's how I got the part.
How do you feel about being chosen to play Annie?
I like it very much. It's a very good part.
Could you tell us about the part?
Yes, it's a Russian spy. It's kind of as they've been writing, a counterpart to Bond. And at the beginning, I work for my government, he for his. And then at the end, we work together. And further on, we fall in love. And that's about it.
Well, we're doing a makeup test of Barbara Bach, and naturally we have to check the different kinds of makeup that would go with her particular kind of face, you know. One of the problems is to stop them from using their own personal makeups, which they are used to, you know. I mean, normally they look in the mirror and they make themselves up. And our job now is to try and break that down and give her a makeup that will be suitable, A, for the part, and B, for the film. She's supposed to be a Russian girl, but she's supposed to be a Russian spy, in fact. But being a Bond film, we take a few liberties, and she's she's rather a glamorous Russian. Not that they don't have glamorous Russian ladies, I'm sure they do, but it's not the popular conception, you know. Most Bond girls have been kind of, perhaps with the exception of one or two, they've been kind of passive. I mean, he's, you know, I mean, kind of anti-woman's lib in a way. But in this case, I think women's lib would be rather proud of her because she is his equal in every way and matches him all the way through the picture. Needless to say, she has to fall in love with him, but that's another matter.
Okay, nice and quiet, please. How's life, Jerry?
Being a Bond picture, people expect to see beautiful girls, and the purpose of this test that the cameraman is doing is to see the best possible way to present her as a beautiful girl.
Go on. Just good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Good. Yep. How about look straight to the lamp there.
There's no character makeup as such. I mean, some men, for instance, have a character makeup, which is a different kind of a problem to the cameraman and a different kind of problem to the makeup man. The purpose of this test is just to make her look as beautiful as possible.
Well, first of all, one reads the script and one finds out exactly what the character is, what she's supposed to be. Then, for instance, today we had tests. Now I'll give my ideas. I'll do what I think is right for her. And the director and the lighting cameraman will say, you know, what they think. For instance, in fact, today she was too dark under the eyes. I mean, it made her eyes look good, but too soft, perhaps. You know, it's made it look too friendly. She's got really nice eyes. She's got nice bone structure on the eyebrow. Her cheeks are good too, because she's playing a Russian, really. High cheekbones, predominantly Russian. And she fits all those things.
So we can see the makeup. One is not trying to create anything new, only as governed by the requirements of the script and trying to live up to the standards already set before. One doesn't, as some of the London hairdressers might do, sit down and say, I am going to do this and that with your hair because I think this is how you'll look great. You have quite a number of masters to please. You have the director and producers who have a concept of what they feel this girl should look like in the part. Occasionally, usually as the film progresses, you're allowed to throw in an idea of your own or a correction of your own which you feel would be good. And of course that's a nice experience. But as long as you can please all those people and come up with the goods, then you feel satisfied that you've done the job that you paid for.
I'm worried about the costume, the military costume. I believe that's...
Beverly!
You're worried about it too, aren't
Not all the costumes I'm worried about.
I'm really worried about all of them.
you? To get ready, you mean?
No, also...
Which one is... Because in the sketches they look very nice.
For the low-hipped pants.
Yeah.
Are old-fashioned. I mean, nobody wears them anymore.
Yes, but next year it may all come back again. You see, if you use the height of the fashion of this year, by the time the film is released next year, the whole thing is changed and you look more dated. I mean, it's like when you see the old Bond films, the only thing that you see which gives you a surprise are sort of miniskirts. If they were an extreme, you know...
But they were, indeed, in fashion then.
Yeah, but they date so quickly afterwards, you see. You have to be very careful on these sort of films, not to be absolutely extreme fashion. And of course, she being Russian, I mean, obviously she wouldn't be...
No, the only criticism I can have on them is that I find them, you know, like a 40-year-old woman would dress like that, except for the low pants with the midriff out. I mean, that's really, no one wears it anymore.
No. Well, we'll have a look at them.
But, you know,
I don't...
I'm worried about getting any of them ready, actually, at the moment.
Besides, well,
But I'm more worried about the uniform, because that's the
I think the uniform, once it's tightened,
yeah, well, that's what I think. I
and
think
with the
perhaps
boots
that's why I want
and
to
so
talk to
forth,
Flora
I
and
think
see
it
if we
will
can
look
get...
smart.
Yeah.
Original decisions, designs were done, and Cubby and Ken, Adam, looked at them, because at that point we hadn't met Barbara. So it was all sort of taken from there. They picked the one they liked out of all the designs, and then Barbara had a look at them and more or less sort of chose slight variations on it.
Did any problems emerge with actually fitting Barbara, having decided in abstract?
No, the problem that occurred was really over the uniform, because as far as all the Russian stuff went, we couldn't get any information on the Russians. I got booted out of the embassy and we didn't get any cooperation. I eventually got cooperation on the uniforms from another source, which I don't like to talk about. So then we faked the Russian uniform. That is not a correct Russian military uniform. We've got a snazzy pair of boots. This sort of jacket, it was a military type jacket, and we put these epaulets on. But we found out that a Russian female never gets to a high rank. Well, we've given her a rather high rank, the gentleman.
One of the basic parts of the job, for me, is to expose her to the right kind of press, and expose her again and again and again. It's a matter of bringing the press to her to the press, and I'm talking very much in terms of a worldwide type of operation. It's not just a matter of getting a girly picture in the London newspaper, which is important too. You start off that way, but then this sort of has to swell out into a completely international type of operation. We began the picture with a press conference to introduce her, because the new Bond girl is automatically a news event. I can show you literally dozens of these photographs which have come in from all around the world, and in many cases it's the same photograph again and again and again, of Barbara with Roger Moore, the new Bond girl. That's news in its own right. Bond and new Bond girl, again and again and again.
I don't mind at all being identified with the Anya character. The one thing that sometimes I don't particularly like is the, let's say, the sex symbol part of it, as most of the Bond girls have been, because that is not at all my scene, as we could say in California. And I don't like that kind of publicity, because I think and I just don't care for that, you know, this Bond bombshell, that kind of stuff. I don't like that kind of publicity. But other than that, I don't mind. You know, Anya is a very nice character, and it's probably the best female character that's ever been in a Bond film.
You have the traditional Bond girl image, which involves having the girl photographed in a bikini, in a bathing suit. This was something that took a certain amount of hassling with Barbara at the beginning. But it was something that was absolutely required, because a Bond girl must at some point be seen within the Bond mold. We have tried to get away from it, but at the same time there is an insatiable market for this type of shot. These are some of the pictures that David James took during those early days here at Pinewood Studios. Barbara in that same body stocking, red and white, over and over again. The important thing for me was to get her photographed by the right photographers and on a very continuous and orchestrated basis.
We're shooting some stills on Barbara Bach, who's the leading lady in the film. And this will be for magazine layouts. Time, Newsweek, various major newspapers use photographs for the Bond film when they do features on the Bond film. And also be used in advertising campaigns, perhaps. The costumes that she wears, of course, are designed to emphasize a certain sexiness, but she's not a sex kitten. As such, she naturally likes to be as beautiful as she can be in photographs that will project her image to all the people who are not yet familiar with her face and name.
Actually, if we use the white, I think that would be more interesting.
Well, are we going to try this?
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we try this now while we have the red, because it'll go okay with red. No?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It won't?
I wouldn't have thought so. Do you want to take it out and take a look?
Yeah.
I think it will. I think you're going to kill one or the other, actually. Do you want to see it?
Yeah. Let me just. You're sure it won't?
Well, you come and look, because that's one way you'll be sure. Well, I think it's much better look if you do that.
Yeah.
It is better, isn't it?
Yeah, we can just
But
kind
you
of
see
pull
how-
this to one side and we get enough light. She doesn't have rejection of stills in her contract. Usually that's limited to big stars, and if one hasn't reached that plateau yet, then one has to be satisfied with what is reproduced in magazines without having a veto right. The magazine would decide, I would decide initially. The final layouts are done by individual magazines.
All the Bond girls have always radiated femininity, to say the least. And I'm all for that. The only thing is, I felt that Anya is the one time that there's absolutely no cheesecake, so to speak, or there's plenty of femininity, hopefully, but no cheesecake. And I thought that it might be nice to have her at, different than the other Bond girls. And as it turns out, with her outfits and so forth, also the publicity has changed accordingly.
Now, in terms of trying to alter the image, when we opened our new 007 stage, we had international phone calls back and forth as to whether Barbara should wear her Russian spy uniform. And that turned out to be one of the most successful elements of that entire operation. And I was very glad that I insisted on this, because as you can see, here are just two of the front pages of Barbara talking to Harold Wilson. And the newspapers found it a wonderful jumping off point for Harold Wilson talking about spies and meeting a beautiful Russian spy in person. Just gave us an absolutely surefire, non-cheesecake type of situation.
Actually, I think, we have been lucky. We have had a lot of publicity, and especially my character in the film has had a lot of varied publicity, which is very good for me personally as an actress, and I also think it's given a scope to the film.
Are you worried about being typecast?
I feel that one should play as many different types as you can, and I know I can play a housewife as well as a Bond girl, so I'm not really worried about being typecast. I'm worried about disappointing my next producer when he sees me walking into his office and saying, "My goodness, weren't you that ravishing girl, and what happened?"
Barbara does come up into this room. She spends a good deal of time up here doing her homework in practical effect. She looks at the pictures that have been taken, and she looks at the clippings, and she sees what gets used, and we frequently disagree about photographs. This whole star treatment is a brand new thing for her, but being an intelligent girl and a girl interested in her career, she's learned my point of view, and I've learned her point of view too. There's an awful lot of hard work involved to become a new star. You really have to work at it, and we use up enormous amounts of her private time, her private life, and bit by bit she's becoming Barbara Bach, the international movie star.
There's a difference, perhaps in my mind, between a star and a good actor. And if I could choose, I would like to be a good actor. Of course, if I can't be, and it happens that one becomes a star through publicity, etc., I guess you do what you can. But if I could choose, I would prefer to be considered a good actress.
All ready? Ready. Turn over.
Well, Pinewood is one of the largest complexes still going in England. Well, there are 15 stages, and the studio is capable of backing up any type of production. By that I mean that as a renter, we come into a studio like this. Now, coming up here on our left, of course, there's the administration of the whole studio, which is over in this complex here. Here we've got other administrative buildings. We have a first aid department, fully equipped. 2 sisters on duty the whole time in case of any accidents. We have our buying department, our main wardrobe department. Here, the property department, and above the property department, the drapes and carpets, where they lay carpets, they make all the drapes, they upholster furniture. There's the paint shop, next to it the plaster shop, and in front of us we have the biggest stage of the whole lot, the 007 stage, which was put up on a part of the studio lot. In fact, you can see here some of the part of the sets that were built some time ago. There used to be a set up here called Baker Street. It was rather sad, I think, driving through these kind of broken down sets, particularly on a day like today. We were able to build it because this is a part of the studio lot and was big enough, had a tank large enough for us to extend and build over. So I think that's given you a pretty good idea of the sort of kind of backup facilities that anybody coming into a studio like this expects to get.
Being an associate producer on a film of this size is a difficult job, really, because you cannot possibly hope to control every aspect of the picture. In an ideal world, one would have everything channeled at least through your brain once, in the sense that you either discuss everything or you see everything that's on paper that goes through. Well, certainly I try and see everything that goes through the production side, which in fact is the whole picture. But of course, because it's such an enormous film, the heads of department on a film of this nature must have a larger executive responsibility to their own department than they normally would. My job really is to supervise those heads of department so that at least I can report to the producer what's happening and know what's happening. And the biggest job really is to be able to absorb everything that goes on so that when one is discussing with the producer and the financing parties of the picture and you want to change the direction of the film for either economic reasons or even artistic reasons or for any reason, you're the one they can come to so that you're able to actually find out where that can be changed.
Bill Cartledge and Rosemary Burrows, the wardrobe supervisor, are going to a meeting to organise backup facilities for filming on the 007 stage.
Terry, the purpose of this meeting, which Bill and Rosemary are coming into shortly, is to go through the crowd numbers and the facilities up on the, the 007 stage. Now, we've gone back one day, haven't we?
We've gone back to Wednesday.
To the Wednesday because of the Scottish location and the bad weather.
David Middlemass, the production manager, and Terry Churcher, second assistant director, will be involved in making the necessary arrangements. They will need to organise caravans for all the principals, offices for the production unit, and wardrobe facilities for the hundreds of extras.
And also where they're going to put everybody, Rosemary, because obviously you can't have the wardrobe up here, can you?
No, it's got to go down near the stage.
Yeah, we've been talking about that just now on our way in here.
Well, we've got shed 6,
and so, I mean, I think you're trying for Shed 5.
Well, the Avengers are using Shed 5, but I'm wondering whether we can... Shall I find out whether we can get hold of Shed 5?
And what about all the main artists? Where are all they going?
Well, if we got some
up the studio, because as I say,
let me give Arthur a ring and see what he says
I think
about
if you
it.
use another, I don't know, as you say, the Avengers are in there at the moment.
Well, they're not shooting, are they?
Well, they're just storing their timber and they're just using it as, you know, I mean, they can move that out.
Oh, does it? Is there any chance of them getting their stuff out so we could use it for wardrobe when we're shooting on the 007 stage?
He's a hell of a cleaner.
Well, we have a word with
What
Arthur,
sort of heating is?
and will you get him to call me back as soon as he comes in? All right, love, marvellous. All right. Arthur's not here at the moment, but Dizzy's going to ask him when he gets back.
You're going to put the wardrobe in 1 then?
In 5.
And the extras can
In 6.
change in 6?
Yes. And we put the small part artist in iron block to change and makeup and hair. Now we want somewhere...
Well, I think it's 40.
We've got a lot.
We got 40.
About 40. I think we would have a couple of porter cabins up there, make it kind of green room. A big one and a small one.
Now...
And we still got our 5 caravans for the principals and plus...
Well, let's go on this one. Right, you need a caravan for Lewis, which needs to be near the door because he's forever popping on and off. You also need 1 for Roger, right? You need 1 for Barbara. We need
1 for Kurt.
Yes, because Kurt's here for
Kurt.
well, at least
Right,
half
he's
the
there
Kurt.
behind the scene, right? So 1 for Kurt. We need a unit office, kind of a portable unit production office. Right, so that's that. Then we've got, what are we saying, a green room?
No, excuse me, did you miss Cubby's caravan?
And Cubby, sorry. Right,
that's very important.
Okay, now
6 caravans and 4, 3.5.
Excuse me, Bill, interrupting them. I got the art department actually, before this meeting, to do this plan for us and give us a rough idea where we could put all these various things. Look, what I thought was if we put the artist caravans here between the 2 doors.
Yeah, but don't forget, we ought to put Lewis's next to the door.
Oh, well, we can put Lewis's there. We've still got room for the other
door, please.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Here we've got the television people are putting, you know, the closed circuit stuff's going in there. They've got to have that.
Right, Zoom TV, they have to be there, presumably for their cable run.
Then that's so the 40 cabins are there. We're going to put another marquee up next to
now what about
the hut for extricating.
All right.
Yeah.
Now what about all the
hello?
All the what?
Oh, Arthur, I'm glad you called me back.
Well,
what's the news on Hut? I always get those huts mixed up. Shed 5. Are the Avengers starting up right away, or is it a bit later in the year now, or at least after Christmas? So it would be all right, would it? Well, that's marvellous, because we could use that for our wardrobe, and then we're going to put the crowd next door. So it's just a matter of now of ordering rails, and I'll talk to Rosemary in a minute, because we've got this meeting going on now, and ask her just what facilities she needs, and I'll get back to you later in the day. Marvellous. Okay, fine, thank you. Yeah, that's great, we've got that.
Very good, isn't it?
Lot to be done to it, David. Because I want a sink, I want a drying thing, because the boys are going in the water.
Cabinet? Well, there's a great big drying cabinet.
Well, there's one up in the centre wardrobe at the moment. If they can get it out the window, wheel it up there, I can use that. And I need about 50 rails.
Need a big bench.
And a big bench to stop all the thespians coming in.
And what about the heating up there?
There's nothing.
There's that sort of air vent thing which is useless.
Useless, darling.
You need the blowers, you need all sorts of heating.
Because the clothes are going to get so damp.
You've had a chat with Lewis about
the big set.
Yes.
Bill Cartledge organises Lewis Gilbert's requirements for a number of small part actors with the casting director.
Yes, I understand he wants quite a lot of actors, actually.
He does. We've only to take the script as a basis. There's going to be a lot of ad-libbing, business and so on, which is only indicated.
I mean, there's nothing scripted for a lot of people to do, but presumably what he wants to do is to have people on tap.
So that he's covered for everything. That's
so that if he wants a little small part to suddenly appear, which isn't actually scripted, he's got a reservoir.
He's got what he needs. That's what we're doing. So we've got.
So how many are we going to need?
Somewhere about 20 American and 20 British.
So you're
make
saying,
up the 2 crews.
So we're saying we're going to have 40 actors.
That's right.
Small part actors up there.
That's right.
Aside from the extras and aside from the stuntmen.
The stuntmen. That's exactly what he wants.
Now, what about the Russians? I mean, does he?
Well, the Russians never speak.
In the initial stages, I had all sorts of difficulties, and we're still going through difficulties because, you see, a script everybody's inclined to think a script is a nice thing to read before you go to bed at night, and it makes a damn good read. But a film script is a technical document, no more and no less. And if you understand the fact that a script is a little bit like an architect's plans, if you suddenly decide to take a wall off or change the angle of a cornice, maybe the whole building will fall down. And it's often people, even in the business, don't seem to realise that a script is not just a pleasant read and a guide to what you're going to shoot. I mean, it comes up constantly in the film business where producers and directors often say, oh, well, we'll do a rewrite and change the scene numbers. That's a disaster for film people, because you see every single department actually breaks the script down by scene number. Now, if you've got exterior pyramids and it's scene 94 and somebody's written a whole thesis, the prop department have produced about 84,000 different props for this. The camera department have worked out they're going to need 3 or 4 cameras. We've got cranes, this, that and the other coming, and it's scene 94. And then somebody says, okay, well, we'll change all that, now scene 94 is something else. Well, you look up scene 94 and you're in somewhere else altogether and the whole thing's chaotic. Now, that's true of every schedule that you do. I mean, when you look at the schedule, cross-plot, breakdown, all the technical documents required to make a film, it's all by numbers.
Filming on the tanker set can involve up to 400 extras, armed with guns that fire. The guns must be handed in to security at lunchtime. The extras must eat and be back on the set as quickly as possible. These arrangements are made with the catering manager.
Yes, can I have a drink? Sit yourself down.
Very nice, you. Thanks very much.
Listen, I'll tell you what, we must talk about your end of the business on the 007 stage.
Right.
Now, catering-wise, from various discussions, it seems to me we're going to end up with about 400 extras, I should think. About 30 stuntmen, 40 actors, and of course we've got 2 units shooting up there all the time, so that's going to be about another 200 people. So we've got we've got about 600 additional sort of people to look after in the studio, aside from all the other productions you've got on the go.
I think the main thing what we'll have to do is to, first of all, take first things first. I think we ought to clear this with the Works Committee and the management to alter the times of the lunches. I think if we can stagger the lunches, so that if you break...
Yeah, when you say that,
time,
you mean you're talking about now the regular studio staff?
Yeah. So if we can bring in a
all
section...
the different shops like the carpenters, plasterers...
That's correct.
What time do they normally break?
Well, normally
12:30, don't they?
12:30, 1:30. Now, if we can bring those forward from, say, 12 to 1, which then by the time you break at 1 o'clock...
Yes.
And in line with the other productions...
Yeah, you see, what will happen to us is that basically our problem is the extras.
Right.
We have 400 of them.
Right.
Now, most of them are going to have guns... practical guns at that.
Yeah.
They've got to hand those into the security. So they'll usually be breaking physically breaking for a meal about 10 past 1. Now, will you be able to cope with that in the canteen?
No problem. Oh yes. What we'll do, we'll open the other sector as well, so that they can filter right the way through to the second part.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be any problem at all. Provided that we can get this to work right, with the construction crew to start first, we get those cleared, I can't see any problem.
Right, okay, because you see, we've got to get them all back by 2.
While the production office organises facilities, Richard Keel prepares for his role. This involves both wardrobe and stunts. He plays the enormous villain, Jaws.
The director and the producer, Louis Gilbert is directing, and Mr. Broccoli, the producer, really want Jaws to be not just the ordinary heavy. And my wardrobe is very well tailored, and Jaws is a guy doing his job, and he's on the other side, but depending on what side you'd be on, he does his job well.
My main job here is arranging, organising action, ideas, and then developing them, and then of course shooting them. I have 6 very good stuntmen working for me, and I work very closely with the art department and the special effects department. Between us we work on ideas, develop ideas, and then we offer up the finished piece, and then you see it on screen.
Well, as far as the stunts are concerned, our job here, Bob Simmons, who's the stunt coordinator, had this room built. It's 2 compartments in a train, and it's just what we call a practice box, and it's primarily the dimensions are the same and the space is the same so that we can have a feeling of the area we'll be working in. And the idea is to work out the details of where the props will be and the dimensions, and to get used to working in the area so that we can, if we have a problem with space or size or props, that we can work with the art department and make those changes that we need.
Well, my job on the Bond films really consists mainly of action, developing good action. If necessary, I still do individual stunts if it's necessary. You see, a lot of people would say to you that, well, he doesn't look like that man. How could he possibly double him? Well, that's a part of my job, part of the study of the business, that you can really double anybody. See, a very famous old director called Raoul Walsh said if the action is good enough, it could be a monkey in top hat and spats. And this is absolutely true. If you know where to cut to your double, where to cut to your artist. And if we can discuss with Lewis, I mean, Lewis is quite open to discussion and ideas, that we can do all these things with smaller people where we have no comparison.
All right, so let's say we're going to be specific when we get round to it. So we're saying that you're going to go through the train window,
yes,
right? Yeah. Who's going to do the fall, which is the only other basic difficult?
From the top? Well, I can do that also. Well, also bear in mind, yes, any one of our people that we take out are top team. They're the best existing stuntmen that we get, and any of us can do it. So you want to be specific, I know, Bill.
Yes, don't let's dispute whether we're the best or not. The thing is, I just want to be specific as to who's going to do the Jaws bit, because we get back to costumes. In any event,
well, put me down.
We're going to have to build up the costumes, and we are going to have to build you up as big as possible anyway, because although it might be an individual thing, there may be Bond in the background or something to relate to. And in any event, in that train, for example, you're going to want to look as big as possible when you go through the window.
Well,
otherwise, it's
scaffolding on the jacket.
Yeah, that's
why,
right.
Why not have it Jerry Crampton? You know, I mean, because it'd be better from your point of view if you watch it as opposed to doing it.
Yes, well, who's going to be there? It's a train. Who's going to be here?
No, I mean, you're going to do the train. I'm talking about the scaffolding in Egypt.
All right, yes, we put Crampton in for that because I prefer to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, going through the windows, you know if you're going to get it right or not.
Yeah.
Shall we say Crampton for the scaffolding?
Crampton for the scaffolding.
He's the biggest out of the 4 we got.
Yeah. Now, what about who else performs a miracle there? Landros goes for Burton.
Landros, so I suppose you've got to double
We'll always have to have a double for him, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, you can't splash water all over him. Half drowning.
Yeah,
I mean, is that going to be
that
somebody
can be
else?
a separate person if you want.
But he's dead at this point.
Don't we see him get it?
Well, he's killed by the gun under the table.
Yeah.
The caving in and the water.
Yeah, but it's
becoming
so what are you suggesting?
No, I'm saying a dummy job.
No,
with a mask.
Look terrible with a dummy.
Also, no, the thing is that for him getting shot, we'll have to use a double. I would say from the reaction you have to do one shot on him, but we'll have to get a good reaction from somebody else. If you're going to shoot him on the table, he's not going to just slump over the table. I hope he's going to fly back.
That's right.
With
and
a
in
good
any
reaction.
event, you can't use a dummy with all that water going. That's what it is, you see. The whole picture does channel through here. I mean, you'll talk to every department, and you'll find that they're absolutely intimately involved in their own area. Fanatically so in some cases, which is a good thing. But somebody somewhere along the line has to have a practical nature and try and sometimes stem the natural enthusiasm to go mad. Because one of the inherent things about film making, of course, is the strive for perfection. And there comes a time when some old rotter has actually got to say, well, that's perfect enough, now we've got to shoot it. And I guess I end up doing that job.
170 and 220. Alright, I'm going to call R3 as let them out. Is that the same as yesterday, or is it more?
No, it's more.
Hello, Arthur. I just want to verify the numbers for tomorrow for the catering up on the big set. How many have I got down? 101? 172.20, yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. There's no change. Okay. And we'll not be working the hour tomorrow night. It'll be normal finishing time. Okay, fine. When's the passes? Yeah. Yes, I think can we get those out tonight? Uh-huh. Yeah. Because otherwise we start the new security thing tomorrow up on the big set, and we must make sure everybody's got a pass before they go in. Okay. Otherwise we'll have people stopped at the gate. Have the ambulance people phoned in yet? Oh, I won't give them a call.
What's the name of the guy who's taken Tony Govio's place? Bill Brown.
Barry Brown.
Barry Brown.
I suppose we're like a sort of clearinghouse, really, for all the different departments. We like to try and channel everything through the office so that we've got tabs on where it's all going to after that. It doesn't always work. We're inclined to only hear sometimes when something's go wrong, because they all go wrong and then they phone us up. But we try and get everybody to channel through us. That's the ideal way of working in production office.
So I came rushing down with this thing, this big problem.
Why is that? I mean, they've told me vaguely that they want more money, is that right?
Yeah, but they've had a big meeting. They've had a big meeting here and they want something, and I've squashed it and got them back on the set. Can I have that 1 minute, please? Sorry, Marguerite.
Is it the same call for tomorrow anyway?
Well, we're cutting a lot down, Bill. Yeah. To be honest with you.
We might have to...
Well, it's all right. Claude's not really worried about it, no. So
sorry, Marguerite, it's just...
We haven't changed it since just now, have you?
Changing the numbers. Less. A lot less. 10, 20, 50, 110.
Yeah.
What, 110 crowds?
That's all.
Yeah.
We've got a big problem, David.
What's the problem?
They want a lot more money.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marguerite. And Chris, once you do, can you get that out there?
Because of all the smoke and explosion.
I'll get on to Grumpy. Pam? Hello, it's Eon, production office. Hello, there's been a change for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're only going to be having 110 extras now.
No.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
No, we're not shooting the hour. Not, well, we haven't been told yet, but I mean, it's pretty definitely no. Just tonight. Okay? Bye, Pam.
Yeah.
There's no typical day. A typical, we work very much off the cuff. I don't know what the day-to-day problems are going to be. We can schedule it. It looks beautifully laid out on paper. And we had an example just now where we thought we got tomorrow's call set up. One of the assistant directors comes in and says, we've got to cut the call because we've got problems with the crowd, or we've got too much smoke on the set. Well, that's something, obviously I couldn't foresee. So I say it's rather like shooting a battle, really. You're the operations room, and we control the battle from here.
Turn over.
It's the third week of filming on the big set, and today the unit is going to shoot the start of an action sequence.
It really isn't like an ordinary film because there's so much that has to be coordinated that the actual directorial part is really quite a small part of the game, really. I mean, on a normal film, you come on the floor and you start working and you start directing the film, directing the actors. But directing the actors in this film is only one, I won't say a small part of it, but it's certainly only a part of it because the logistics are a very big part of it.
Well, 341 is basically a fight situation with Bond. It's Bond being taken out of the control room and under armed guard, and then creating a diversion by knocking out some cylinders from a gas trolley, and a fight ensues during which he shoots down the two guards who are with him. Well, basically that kind of sequence, the preparation required on it is mainly from the stunt point of view. The activity, the action, the fight, the struggle have to be designed, rehearsed and worked out, and once a kind of basic sketch has that's been sorted out, the director will then, from that, arrange the cover, the angles that he wants to shoot that given sequence with.
In this sequence, Bond is being escorted from the control room to the brig, to the prison, the jail. And the guard is walking down here with Bond. And as he gets here, there's another guard who takes on, follows after Bond. As Bond gets to this trolley, he steps on one side, hits this rail, and the whole of these bottles will drop down, confuse the guards, and they fall over. Bond will then reach for this gun, and as he does so, another guard steps in with an automatic weapon, which Bond knocks the weapon out of his hand, smashes him down, and then makes off towards those stairs. When he gets to the top of the stairs, yet another guard comes up, and he kicks the guard down the stairs. That's the sequence. Bond then jumps into one of the hover cars and drives off down to the brig to release prisoners.
Well, in this scene 341, you see, basically it's a sort of third of a page, which will probably take about a day to shoot. Just reading from it, Bond is escorted now by 3 guards. Well, the first thing, of course, is it just says 3 guards. Terrific. It's an action sequence, and it'll mean, of course, that we have to double the extras that would normally be used with stuntmen, because we're into action here, fighting with Roger at a height of about 40 feet above the ground, using quite heavy technical pieces of equipment like the gas cylinders that are later described, like the gas bolt gun, which has to be specially made, and I'll go on. The gas cylinders, now the gas cylinders, you see, would have to be specially made by the special effects department, and the bolt gun itself is an invention in the sense that it's had to be specially constructed, thought out as to what in theory it's possible to do. And of course later in the film it has the effect of being the weapon that Bond is able to start a breakout in the movie. And the special effects have had to research over a long period of time how in fact this bolt gun would work.
Special effects have a commitment because in this particular case the gas cylinders had to be specially made out of glass fibre so that they won't actually iron and would therefore not cause harm, with them rolling around and even falling off the gantries and down below. They had to be specially made, and the trolley itself had to be also prepared in terms of the strut, an upright strut which Bond kicks aside and dislodges, so that has to be engineered for the sequence. And this is something which we prepare for by talking with both the stunt arranger and the special effects chief.
This rail you see here is hooked here, and when I knock that up, the whole lot will fall, the whole lot will drop down.
It's no good doing filming just the set. The set has to fit into the action, and the set has to be filled with action, with people running and people fighting and people doing things, and also people acting, which is not so easy to act against this backdrop because it's very, very big. So there is always the thing of when do you come on the actors' faces and when do you stay back and show the action and the big kind of things.
Now, how far are we going to take this shot? Are we going to go into the gas trolley?
No, I don't. Well, I think we can walk them up to that. Alec!
Is it purely an exit?
Yeah, I think we should start here. Get them to come out get Roger and the guards to come out.
Yeah, and he picks up the second stunt guard somewhere along this rail.
Somewhere along this rail, to pick up the second stunt guard.
So then we pick up the actual situation with the gas trolley on the next cut.
Well, I think I can pan them in, actually. I think I'll pan the whole thing. We'll cut away to Barbara down there, which we've just done, yes? And then we'll get the, then we can pan him onto this. So, Claude.
Do you want to say hi, please?
Well, I think we can stay on a level here. Can we come in? Can we come here? Right. Ariel. Please. Yeah, it's John here. John Wood. If we can get.
John, just walk it through, please, once. Would
stay about halfway.
Everybody else,
Bob.
clear on the corner there a moment. Clear around the corner, boys.
Right, John. Just walk down here and stop about halfway down the. Yeah, about there. Yeah. We'll see you coming from the direction. About there, John. That's okay. There.
Jimmy Lodge.
There.
Jimmy Lodge.
Right. Okay, John, come on. There.
Martin Grace and Jimmy Lodge.
There. We'll bring them in there, yes. Stop. Come in a bit further, John. Stop about there. We should be further down, I think.
I think we should be like that so we see the opening and the globe. Yeah. Now he looks down. Look down. He looks down, sees that shot that we've just done. Yeah, we've seen that. Right, now keep walking, John. We might have to slap him his face up there. There. Keep walking. And we pan him down the line there, yes? Straight through, yes. Okay, cut it, and then we jump in for the fight.
So you don't want to overlap the kick on this?
No, I think it's better to just go from there, right? So Claude's got quite a big light there, hasn't he? Is Claude around?
Take quite a time for it.
Yes, it's a big lighting job, yeah. It's a big light. Claude? Is he here, Claude?
No, I don't know.
No, he'll be back.
Just further enough. Track on here to keep them moving at the beginning of the fight.
No. This is to intercut. I've kept this long so that when we go, we've got all the stuff down of them getting into the thing. So that's going to be long. So I think we can cut between the two, the entrance and then back to here. And then that comes out, to keep it going. Otherwise it's very slow. Yes. The stand-ins are merely just for the lights, I mean, if the actor stood under the lights all day, he'd hardly be fit to perform. We only really use the stand-ins, not doubles. The doubles are a different thing. The stand-ins are used just really for these lights, which, if he was kept standing all day, they wouldn't be really fit to make a performance,
Every time we come back on a long shot, lamp has been moved, so I have to reset everything again. So I put all my lights again I use for the last long shot. And it's a bit of work, of course. Take a little time.
How long will it take?
I think I will need half an hour. Well, that's what I said to the first assistant. I don't know how long. He always asks to me how much I want. But in fact, he needs sometimes much more time than I do.
And lose the spider back to the HI box. You've got a box there, Gordon, at the single.
Yes. Yeah. So you go on top now. Right.
I know.
Oh, yes. No, right.
Schedule-wise, it's purely it's an organisational thing of moving from area to area so that you don't spend too much time backtracking. Because every time you move here, you're moving through colossal distances, and the lighting arrangement or rearrangement and the resetting up of background activities is fairly monumental.
Bert, please. Got too much light on top.
Somebody go on the top rail.
Yes.
Michael. Go on the top rail, please.
Well, I see. Well, all that frame, this one can turn a little more.
Turn it right.
Right, yes. To get more on the inside. Yes.
Go ahead. Ariel, in a way, is my mouthpiece. I don't know, he carries on where I leave off, I suppose. He does all the donkey work around the set. And I tell him, we discuss what we're going to do in the various scenes, and he is responsible for the background action, for the extras, whilst I deal with the foreground action. And hopefully they both dovetail, But of course his work is much more, again, than just working on the set. Backstage he has a huge amount of work to do, of getting ready to set all these things up. He discusses that with me months before, and then he is instrumental in getting all these things ready by the time I come on the set to do the actual manipulation of the artists.
As the shooting progresses on the picture, the responsibility becomes tangible in that one is controlling to a limited extent the schedule, and as a result of that, of course, the budget. I mean, on a set of this size, again, examples for instance, being able to prune or save budget-wise are enormous, because with a crowd call of 200 to 400 people, a day, which runs into several £1,000s, even an hour's overtime runs into several £1,000s. So the way one arranges shooting does to a large degree determine either, for instance, something like a no lunch break for crowd, if you find that you have to shoot with them either side of lunch, or at the end of the day when they go on overtime having to keep them back to carry on work.
So Ariel, we've got to dress this now, haven't we? How many? We don't want too many guards back here. In fact, very few.
Well, I've got only 3 or 4 at most.
Yeah, just someone back there, yes. Because eventually he's going to have to... You've got one there to fall down the stairs, Bob, haven't you?
He runs up the stairs, and when that runs
yes.
He starts running up, and when he gets to the top, Bond just gets there.
That's
so he's
right.
going to time his coming up for Bond to get
Kick and down the stairs.
He goes in, Bond follows down.
Has he tried that? Because that's quite a tough staircase, isn't it?
That's all right.
Yeah.
I won't rehearse it.
No, but is it? Yeah, but is it?
You've got 30 takes on there.
How many takes have we got before? How many will he do?
2 or 3.
2 or 3, yeah. But it's quite a tough staircase.
The action is first rehearsed with a stunt double.
Okay. Wasn't bad, actually.
Yeah, I know how we do it.
Yes? As long as you get a good swoosh on their legs, right?
Would be the other
That's it, yeah.
Would be the other thing to build a little ramp in the actual collar, wouldn't it? So
Well, it is.
already on.
No, we have. Look, we got it there.
He's got it. See, he has a
No, I
ramp
think an
there.
earlier reaction on our first guard will fix it.
We had a stunt double there in case. We found that we had to use one in the event of the sequence developing along lines that we hadn't imagined. But basically in this sequence we didn't need one. Usually the reason you have one is either the stunt is dangerous, there's an element of risk and you don't obviously want the actor harmed, or secondly, the physical dexterity of the stunt artist is greater.
Okay, stand by. Let's just see the walk.
The action is then rehearsed with Roger Moore.
Stop there for a second, stop. There's a mark there, Roger. Whoa.
It's a piece of tape on the rail.
Look down. All of you can look down. You don't push him too quickly. Look down. And go, Roger. Yeah. Go. Right, down. Yeah, keep going. Faster. Yeah, keep on one side. Okay.
Whose cup of tea here? Boys. Anybody's teas here? Before we get to that, anybody fancy shooting it? Right, let's have it quiet, please. Stand still, everybody. Quiet, please. Hold all the work. Right. You ready to start? Okay, Alec.
Okay.
Turn it up.
Rock it. 1 second.
All right, action. Keep them going. Faster, guys, faster. Got it. Yeah, one more, straight away. Keep him going, boys.
Right, here we go now. Very quiet everywhere. All ready? Turn over.
679, take 2.
This shot is taken from the rushes of The Spy Who Loved Me.
Got it. Okay, one more. Sorry, Roger.
Go again.
Roger, don't forget that you're watching the speeding car going up the hill.
679, take 3.
All right, action. cut it. No, he hardly came to a stop then. Let him have a good stop and a good look.
Go again right away. Mime only in the background.
Oh, yes.
Turn over.
Thank you.
79, take 4.
Action. Whoop, one hand, cut it, sorry.
Go again.
Very good. Just before there was nearly perfect. Action! Looking, stop and look. Got it. Okay.
Too bad. Same for it.
Okay, boys? How long is it going to take you, John, to do all?
While Claude Renoir is lighting the next setup, Lewis Gilbert meets other members of the unit to discuss the next day's shooting.
Because we want some big fire explosions and lots of smoke. Particularly barrels of smoke, fire in the water, going off in the water, people falling into the water. It should be one huge one. Now, the only thing is you may have to work very late one night. Now, if you can't do it for tomorrow...
I think it needs more planning now.
Do you think you want to do it the next day? And I'll just stay close then? Why don't we stay close tomorrow? Let's stay close on the battle tomorrow. And we'll give you a day's notice to lay all the explosions and your fire and your petrol and your...
Now, when we say... For your long shot, though, since the armour is closed, right, because we've got, like I say, would the long shots be favouring the armoury side, or...?
Well, it'll be from back there, yeah. But of course we'll have 3 or 4 cameras close on all that stuff as well.
A lot of our major are more or less contained, closer stuff. I mean, we've got a lot of
second unit we can do that, can't we?
Yeah, well that's separate.
Which we can control.
That's no problem, yeah. But what we've got to get, in order to use the set, is the very longest shot that we could get, with everything going, with as many explosions, so we're aiming for Thursday in that case. Smoke drifting across, individual things that need, which I can also cover on different cameras. Would it worry you too much? Well, he is, but he's on the other side as well, yeah. Would you mind if Ernie just moved that just a touch this way, look? Well, Ernie's got a camera up there, you see, shooting down on the thing. Yeah, if he could move it.
Lewis Gilbert's going to cover the next setup with 3 cameras.
Well, we can go back a touch, can't we? Yeah, you can do that. Right, it's just a rehearsal. Ready? Right. Action! Yeah, you'll go right back, won't you? Because don't forget you're covered on that camera. See, you're covered on that camera and this camera. So on the night... Trying to get out of that whole yeah, on the night. Hear a big clatter, that's right, and then come running towards it. You don't need to particularly see which one it is. Yes? Good. Okay, let's shoot it.
That whole walk's got to be, clear because of that light through there. Otherwise, they go into darkness. From that light.
Every shot in this.
No, aerial.
Right, action.
What?
Ready, Annie? Right, action. Fine. Got it. Pretty good, wasn't it, Annie? Yeah. Okay, ready. Everybody stand still. Action!
Right, reset chronology, save the race. Roll that time.
Why did you use 3 cameras?
Well, when you've got 3 cameras like that, by cutting you can speed the instant up, or any part of the thing which is not too good you can eliminate by quick cutting. The more cameras you have, the more you're able to cut from one camera to the other and speed up the entire action.
What's the largest number of cameras you've used on one piece?
Oh, I've used 7 cameras sometimes on big, really big effects. We'll probably, in a day or two when the big battle starts in here, we'll probably have 6 or 7 cameras there.
That particular one, there wasn't a lot of preparation as far as I was concerned. I was told exactly where all the props were going to be. It had actually been rehearsed before with the stunt director, Bob Simmons, and with Martin Gray. They walked through it with the other stuntmen that were going to do the scene with me. They knew exactly what they were going to do. It was explained to me at the last minute that I come in, because I do not have time to be in all those places at once. If it is a big action sequence, such as in the last Bond film, Man with the Golden Gun, which was a lot of martial arts and kung fu, then I rehearsed for 2 months beforehand, rather like to rehearse a ballet.
Have there been any particular problems about today's filming? Any particular things that have...
Not really. Not really. The tea's been a bit cold, but other than that, no, it hasn't really. It's been gone very well, I think.
Turnover.
By December 1976, the first unit had returned from 5 weeks filming in Sardinia and Egypt. While they were away, the production office at Pinewood prepared the backup services for work on the 007 stage. Today the unit are filming the confrontation between James Bond, Anya, and the arch-villain Stromberg. It takes place in the control room of the tanker set. This is their 3rd week shooting on the 007 stage.
As you can see, it is noisy and it is cold. I would be delighted to get off it alive. I doubt whether I will get off it alive, because the plan is to kill me.
Today is Monday, and I usually spend the weekend going through the script and seeing how the film's going in my mind. This is quite a key scene, although it's not a difficult scene to shoot. It's quite a key scene in the picture. And I make it the night before, like last night, I prepare today's shooting, and probably this morning I go through it again, and soon I'll rehearse the actors. And very often when we do a rehearsal, I change my mind, and things become quite different to what I thought they were going to be yesterday. This is the main scene of Bond and Major Marsifal, the girl. This is their confrontation. They've been caught down below, coming out of the submarine, and Stromberg is bringing them in, and this is their confrontation, the first confrontation they've had since they met casually earlier on in the film.
Could you tell us how you plan today's shooting?
Well, actually one of the problems is this huge globe here that you've probably seen. It dominates a huge part of the set, and I haven't got too much set to operate it, actually. But it's not a very difficult scene from my point of view, actually, and he has to sit there, and they have to come in here, so I'm kind of limited to the kind of moves that they can make, because, as I say, this globe has a big significance. That part of the plot is told on this globe. So, therefore, I have to play the scene with people somewhere in the vicinity of the globe. He is up here, and the only way he can come down to them is down these stairs here. So, the scene really plays itself in that sense, that I'm so limited in where I can place them that there isn't too much problem for me. I mean, I should just place them where the scene demands it, you know. Whoop, whoa, come down here. There, about there, whoop. Now, guards, stay back, will you? And you stay back a touch. Now, John, come to your left a bit, will you? Right, over, John, just a bit there. And you're back over there, yes? A bit more. No, towards me, dear. There, that's about it there. Right? Right, can we just mark these positions just lightly for the minute? There.
Rocky, go to your right. Rocky, to your right.
Und schiebe hoch und sah. Hopp!
Sydney. Listen, you're supposed to be sick.
They say the coffee. He will be there.
Come on, let's go to the caravan. Where is Kurt? Kurt?
It's his birthday. He's not going anywhere.
Where's Kurt? Steve? Where is he? Oh, Kurt? We just go to the caravan and do a quiet rehearsal, huh? It's a bit like the Marx Brothers on here this morning, isn't it?
We sat there drinking coffee and tea, and Roger had a cigar, and he said it won't be long now. It wasn't, no, then, you know, he said what he wanted, more or less. But it wasn't actually a true rehearsal, I mean, as people think of rehearsals. It was just kind of like a talk through, and he said, we're going to shoot, you know, coming out of the submarine, and then you walk across, and then you meet Kurt, and, you know, just general kind of things.
Okay, ready?
Having established the camera position using stand-ins, Lewis Gilbert directs a rehearsal of the actors on the set.
All right, keep pushing them so they have to walk quicker, huh? Down the stairs, right down the stairs. Yeah. There. Whoop.
Rehearsals in films are a little different to rehearsal in the theatre. As you know, we just do it scene by scene. And so normally Lewis will call us in for a line-up, which is so that the camera knows exactly where it's going to be, what camera movement there is going to be, whether they're going to have put tracks, where our moves are going to be. It's then marked very carefully with chalk or battens, so that if we are going from place to place, we know exactly where to go without ever looking for the mark. And then we go away and they light it, which can take anything from 20 minutes to an hour. Then we come back and we shoot the scene.
Are those lights going to come on? Are those lights going to come on the ball?
Now, all you lot here,
are the lights going to come on?
Yes. You're walking on it.
They are.
Trying to fix from what I see.
Oh, I see. I'm just wondering about the opening frame.
Later on, you say you've got lines.
Yeah, I've got one. I didn't remember we wrote that line, completeness of it.
You've done that before this.
It's before this.
Yeah. Now you're saying it's finished. Yeah.
It is a tense business, you know, for everybody. It always looks to the outsider as though people are doing very little in a film studio. A lot of people are standing around at certain times. Well, when one group is standing around, all the others are working, and vice versa. People have to be willing to have a joke. And then it is fun, as you said before, an experience. It's raining on this set. You see, this is what I mean by being able to take a joke. I will go down and kill them in a second. Thank you very much, fellas.
You don't see it from your side at all, do you?
Well, you'd see a shape going through the sort of screen, but no, it's hardly worth it.
But if he does get it, he'll do his best and mark it down the surgeon. But he does.
Last one, let me try.
Turnover.
Okay, right, sound run. Mark it.
3652.
DTRs, please.
Ready, action.
All the pictures that have a thick black bar, top and bottom, are from the rushes of The Spy Who Loved Me.
Well, 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 James Bond and Major Masova. You've certainly been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Now, work through the water. This time I'll know completed. Okay, boys.
Is that a wheel on the floor?
Yeah. How was that?
Right, rehearsal, line up the next start, please.
I forgot to shout now. I forgot to shout now.
Oh, you did say?
Yeah, but... Right. Okay, now. Right, now... Sydney, where were you? On your mark.
Lewis. What? Well, you didn't.
A picture roll.
Yeah. Oh, we'll be off long before then. I've got to be on.
Be on Kurt the minute he starts talking. What's the matter with you?
I don't mind if it rolls. I mean, it's quite natural. They don't stay dead, you know. They should roll occasionally. If it's going to be dead stack, it looks kind of unnatural, you know. I mean, it should, that's why I don't mind even the line game.
It looks too perfect otherwise.
Yeah, it looks like, well, otherwise it's going to look like you've got still pictures in there, you know. Yeah. Okay, Roger.
Quiet please for a line-up. Quiet. Not the step.
Right, now, Kurt, can you just walk down and show me your position you're going to be, will you? Can you, starting from back there, your lines, huh?
Look, whoever's talking, would they kindly belt up?
Okay, let's just see the position that you're going to take up down here. Ready? All right. Action.
Given their targets. At 12 noon, they will have reached firing positions. Minutes later, New York and Moscow.
Stay there, Kurt. You can stay there. You can stay up. Yeah.
Well, the destruction will follow and the new era will begin.
Submarines 1 and 2 can make departures,
Yeah.
All right, Stromberg, you're ready to play. How much do you want?
How much? Whatever do you mean, Mr. Bonds?
Not to fire those
You deluded, Mr. But I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face.
Louis Gilbert rehearses Roger Moore and Barbara Bach for a wide shot.
You can probably get rid of all the
Right, can everybody clear now, please? Got a lot of work to do. All go.
Mr. Moore comes into this scene. He's been in a scuffle with untidy hair and perhaps a collar open or button open. You must remember that he must enter this scene exactly the same or it's going to jar on everybody. You know, so, for instance, the scene in Sardinia was shot over 5 days. With days between. And you have to know exactly. I mean, if Miss Buck's hair was hanging over both shoulders, it must be exactly the same when we come back days later.
One close-up of one on Roger and the other one on the two, and then we'll do a second take and one can go on her. The only thing is Sydney's position there was because we've shot the close-ups.
Yeah.
Question whether we. No, I think it's better to cheat him out altogether, and then we can do what we like.
Yes, sir. 2 close-ups, one of each or what?
Just Roger, sir.
Just Roger.
Just Roger.
At the moment.
Yeah. How big you are?
Coming out, doesn't he? I said, well, that's...
but I don't like that.
No, but all these things are personal, and I think that you just have to see them with an audience.
I think the fish...
I think that's a huge...
All right. All those kids love them. Lewis, we've got a problem here with the monitors.
What problems with the monitors?
Andy, wheel them on, please.
Okay.
Take good time, Beverly.
Are they in? Yeah, right, okay. Right. Well, let's do them one at a time, it's no great. Claude.
All the work on the stage. Quiet for rehearsal.
Right, action.
Well, James Bond and Major Masala. Certainly have been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Yes, New York and Moscow. Then London is all right.
What are you talking about?
All right, Stromberg.
You would never dare to attack London.
All right, Stromberg, you're ready to fight. You don't give a damn about how many millions you kill doing it.
Today, civilization has been...
Okay. That's as far as we go. Yeah.
Of course, I'm a lunatic.
I think you want to see one. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what these eye lines with the Kurt. I think we'll just have to
You don't want to go too far down.
No, exactly. He went too far down.
Well, he's in fact stopping here, isn't he? He'll in fact be stopping there, so he should be much more than this. Well, you don't want it to look too close.
Don't mind?
No. Otherwise, about there. Okay, fine. In fact, you can go one down. Just one down on the bottom.
Boys, will you just let me, please?
Now,
can we stop the chat? Nobody called.
boys, hold all the work at the back and no talking. Stand still, please. Thank you.
Six.
Ready? Action.
Well, James Bond and Major Amasova.
You've certainly been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Both crews aboard, sir. Missile unload completed.
They have already been given the targets. At 12 noon, they will have reached firing positions. Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. Global destruction will follow. A new era will begin.
Submarines 1 and 2. Commence departure drill.
All right, Stromberg, you've made your point. How much do you want?
How much? Whatever do you mean, Mr. Bond?
The price for not firing those nuclear missiles.
Do it, Mr. Bond. I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face of history.
By destroying the world.
Okay, close up, Roger. I'll have to do like we used to do in the Saints. Cover him in a close up. Roger has a terrible cold. I think we're going to have to post sync all of today's work.
Well, James Bond and Major Amasova. You've certainly been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Both crews aboard, sir. Missile unload completed.
They have already been given their targets. At 12 noon, they will have reached their firing positions. Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. Global destruction will follow, and a new era will begin.
Submarines 1 and 2. Commence departure drill.
All right, Stromberg, you've made your point. How much do you want?
Whatever do you mean, Mr.
The price for not firing those nuclear missiles.
I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face of history.
By destroying the world.
That was a good one, Roger, but apparently there's a little problem on the video.
If I lash up on the background.
Well, you can't see very much of that, Alec, can you?
Well, I can see a
must be
whole
very...
monitor on my phone. I can only get half the picture, and it's probably okay.
Yeah. Can't the guy just sit in front of it? Why do we shift the guy over and not bother? Right, let's go again, straight away.
Say when you're ready to replay, Ian.
All right, one more, straight away, let's go. Do you want to shift him over, or do you want to... Okay. All right, shush, let's go.
667, take 2.
Submarines 1 and 2. Commence departure drill.
All right, Stromberg, you've made your point. How much do you want?
Whatever do you mean, Mr. Bond?
The price for not firing those nuclear missiles.
I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face of history.
By destroying the world.
Got it.
Inevitably.
All right? Okay, one on Barbara now, yes. Same on Barbara. Maybe I just give the impression of being calm. Sometimes I'm not so calm. But I suppose after 30 pictures you begin to get to know what is going to go wrong, and I suppose you can plan accordingly. And if things are going right, you learn how to relax, really, which is also very important.
Action. So I've already been given the targets. 12 noon, they will have reached firing position. Within minutes, New York and Moscow...
Look up at New York, darling, and New York, darling.
Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. Global destruction will follow, and a new era will begin.
Submarines 1 and 2, commence departure drill.
All right, Stromberg, you made your point. How much do you want? What do you mean, Mr. Bond? Price for not flying those nuclear missiles. You have alluded, Mr. Bond. I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face of this.
By destroying the world.
By creating a world.
Okay, so we can go on.
Yes.
Right, through next line. Final from your line, from New York. From the... Through next line.
Where's it going to?
Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. So your first line's no first line.
No, second line.
Submarines 1 and 2.
Yeah.
668, take 1.
Action. Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. Global destruction will follow, and a new era will begin.
Submarines 1 and 2, commence departure drill.
All right, Stromberg, you've made your point. How much do you want? How much? Whatever do you mean, Mr. Bond? The price for not firing those nuclear missiles. You have alluded, Mr. Bond. I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face of history.
By destroying the world.
Before breaking for lunch, the crew reverses the camera position in preparation for the afternoon's work.
When an actor doesn't see the film as I see it, because an actor is only playing day by day the individual part that he's playing, it's very difficult for him, because as you know, we shoot the film back to front. Sometimes we do the end at the beginning and the beginning at the end and bits in between, and he's no real knowledge of what goes on in the director's mind or how it's going to be pieced together.
The afternoon begins with Kurt Jürgens rehearsing his lines.
Well, 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 James Bond and Major Amasova. You have certainly been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Both crews aboard, sir. Missile unload completed.
They have already been given their targets. At 12 noon, you will have reached firing positions. Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. A new era will begin.
Submarines 1 and 2, commence departure drill.
That was good. That was good timing, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. All right. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, good. Okay, let's shoot it.
Action. Well, 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 James Bond and Major Amasova. You have certainly been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Both crews aboard, sir. Missile unload completed.
They have already been given their targets. At 12 noon, they will have reached firing positions. Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. A new era will begin.
Thanks. Got it. Thanks. Okay, one more.
That particular scene for Kurt was a kind of melodramatic scene, so of course I had to make sure that he didn't go over the top, as we say in the business, that he doesn't overdo it, because a scene like that is very easy to overplay, you know.
669, take 3.
Action. Well, 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 James Bond and Major Amasova. You have certainly been persistent. Very well. Now your curiosity can be satisfied.
Both crews aboard, sir. Missile unload completed.
They have already been given their targets. At 12 noon, they will have reached firing positions. Within minutes, New York and Moscow will cease to exist. Global destruction will follow, and a new era will begin.
Got it. No, it's Take two only, boys. Right, next is set up against I'm not going this way.
Well, you're happy with my going?
Right, Kirk, can you take your position here? All ready? Turn over.
Most of the film, or all the film, is shot in really relatively very small pieces. In fact, I think we got up to about 980 on the clapperboard, which means there's about 980 small pieces of film, which all has to be fitted together. But of course, there are other units shooting as well, and that all has to be fitted in. Now, of course, we have a blueprint, which is the script which we follow, but the mood and the tempo of the film is determined here in this room, really. Yes. Well, I think this next shot should come out entirely, don't you? I think it's very slow, isn't it, this one?
Yeah, either that or just use a little of it, but I'm not sure if there's any
I think it's probably better to go, I think it's better to go to Stromberg,
yes,
there, and then pick this up way down here.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah,
because that is slow, isn't it? And at this stage of the picture, I think we've got to move on a bit.
Yeah, great.
Well.
Yeah.
James Bond, Major Muscle.
So it would have helped to have seen him just that much earlier too.
Both crews aboard, sir. Missile unload completed.
Yeah, we're going to put that to a tannoy, aren't we?
That's right. Make it sound more technical.
Firing positions. Within minutes, New York and Moscow.
We ought to get that work hand in hand on that globe as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Doing the inserts.
Submarines 1 and 2. Commence departure drill.
These orders seem to hold up the thing terribly.
They do.
I think we'll have another look at those, because a lot of these orders I don't think you need wait for.
No.
We can put it behind. We can put it behind other people's dialogue, you know. We'll speed it up.
Yeah. Stromberg, you made your point. How much do you put?
Well, we'll have to do Roger again, won't we? Because
yeah,
he's got a very bad
cold, didn't he? Yeah, I remember.
He sounds so. Makes him sound so melodramatic.
I'm not interested in extortion. I intend to change the face of history.
By destroying the world.
Yeah, well, we can't have that line, can we? That's a terrible line. No. I think he should just go straight on. That's a bad line.
Yeah, it'll come out very neatly, actually.
Yes, and we just cut him coming straight
great.
through. Yeah, so that's a bad one. There are certain moments of action, certain moments of humour, certain moments with girls and things which Bond always has to have, you know. But I think that there's no specific thing, because it's not copying in that sense. I mean, there is a shape to the film, to the films, just as though there's a classical Western film, classical war picture. I mean, they don't copy each other, but there are certain routine things in every war picture, in every Western picture. And I think there are certain classical things in a Bond picture, because Bond is kind of unique in cinema.
Can I have that trim, John? I don't do it all myself. We've got a large staff here that do very well. You know, they cope with all this. Everything is catalogued. We have a continuity sheet for each scene that's shot. We have a cross-index system. We have the film coded and numbered, so that at a glance you can ask for the trims of that take to be brought out, and they appear very, very quickly. You just ask for the number, and my system will produce the film very, very quickly, and an alteration can be made. We constantly alter the film, and it's very important that at every stage that you can refer back to material that hasn't been used. Because, you know, when you first assemble a scene, you make a scatter shot for some reason, and then the further stage in cutting, you're suddenly looking for something specific, and you may well find you can use that scene you discarded at an earlier stage in a different place sometimes. not necessarily what they were always intended for. Now here we're going to try and speed up Bond's entry into the control room. So from the cut where he leaves the lift with Enya, by cutting to a closer shot of the missile, a close shot of Stromberg, and possibly I'll be able to bridge the long tracking shot and remove it in order to get Bond and Enya into the control room more quickly.
You know, I mean, it is wonderful to have a set that large. Not many people making films have ever had a set that large. But it does pose certain very large problems, you know. I mean, the amount of time that it takes from somebody to walk from one side to the other, the picture would run for 3 days, 9 minutes, you know. And this is one of the biggest problems, to try and keep the time down and to show the set for what it's worth. And yet you have this problem that the actors have got to move in a very narrow way. Otherwise, you know, it's 100 yards and it takes a long time to walk 100 yards.
Interesting, really, because the big set is such a monster. The first scenes we did there in the battle scene, you know, you have 600 men rushing around and explosions taking place everywhere. And when you look at that shot, it's so vast, your eye's not quite sure where to go. There's so much to look at.
Pace is not necessarily the only thing. I mean, sometimes by pace you mean slowing it down. You know, it's rather like a football match. Sometimes you want to go faster, but sometimes you have to go slower. And it's a very difficult judgment to make, because it's not like a play where you can actually try it out on a different audience every night. You're really backing your judgment as to how audiences are going to react in the future to this given sequence.
Well, there's good metallic noises here, and yeah. He's really solid. Yeah. That's not confusing, is it? But you don't from home
it's
think
a bit.
That
it is a bit.
If we cut the scene in the control room earlier, so the man's in movement before we come to that. Okay.
Yeah, and leave the guard slightly ahead of it. In other words,
I see. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
so we'll extend the front of the stationary guard.
Yeah, so that it takes time for him to come in.
Confusion. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Also, I tell you what would help it if you were just a touch longer on the man waiting. You see what I mean?
Man waiting, yeah, that's a good idea. So I'll put the equipment on the front of the next shot.
Yeah. It's more of a shock too, I think.
I think this could be speeded up, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's probably too many shots sort of either side. I think you want to intercut more with Roger's group and
yeah.
That's good.
I think that's right to hold the big set back until
that's good. Good.
I wonder if we need that fire there, man, the fire, I suppose.
It may be, yeah.
Maybe we come back to it later.
Well, the fire looked a bit early, didn't it? I mean, the fire in the water may be a bit early.
Use that shot
Push him later, I think,
yeah.
You can see Roger slightly blinks there when he fires that gun. Is there anything we can do about that? So it looks a bit... That's Roger doing his stuff, isn't it? I think... That explosion always seems wrong. I don't know why. Do you think it's...
Well, I think it's because you don't really see the man throw the grenade. At one time you used to have a man throwing the grenade.
Yeah, but we interrupted it, which was wrong.
Which was wrong.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we haven't got a shot. If we'd seen the car earlier, then you could have come to that a little later.
We have got a shot of the car, though, haven't we?
Well, I think there is probably a shot on the second camera
we ought to have a
somewhere.
look at that, because it's something... It may be the size of the explosion, you see. It may be the size of the explosion.
I mean, it should be one of these fellas throwing the grenade, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but we can't interrupt it. That's the scenario.
Not really.
Because, we had it one time interrupted. It didn't kind of work.
Yeah. I'll have a look at the material again. suppose we're more conscious of those dives than...
Yeah. Well, they're better than these. I tell you what I think is bad. That's quite a good one. But those three always, they're so entirely...
Well, you feel that if you show too many before. But that's a very important one for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only got 3 people going now. It does show
I think all this is unnecessary. I think it puts Bond in a very bad light. I don't think we can put Bond in a situation where somebody tells him on the man to go and get himself killed. I think we'd be better off to cut all this, lose the entire piece of him running up the stairs, and I think if you take the whole thing out...
Yeah, and then just come back to the dialogue about the armor plate.
Yeah, take this all out and just go from here. I think it's better if we pick him up much, much later. Sometimes whilst we were directing a war sequence, like the one that you saw, you'd make things up as you go along. I mean, you know, little incidents. You have to create those because they're not scripted, and that's part of the director's job to create those. Well, when you come to stick it all together, you might suddenly see, like I saw then, that Bond was standing by whilst the captain sent another boy off to what was obviously going to be his death. Well, that's very un-Bond-like. He wouldn't stand by, and so we cut that, you see, and Bond is then the hero again.
As the final editing of the picture nears completion, music is added to the soundtrack. Marvin Hamlish, composer of the music for A Chorus Line, The Sting, and The Way We Were, describes how he composed the new Bond theme.
I was very anxious to write a song that I thought was completely different than any of the songs that had been written for the Bond films. And I also didn't want them to quite be about the villain. I wanted a song written about Bond. I thought it was time that he be pretentious enough and vain enough, in fact, to have a song written about him. So I just wrote this part of it, this very front part. I just had about a few bars of that. And then I was working with my lyricist, Carol Bear-Sager, who's a kind of a well-known lyricist, having done a lot of stuff with Melissa Manchester, and in fact now has her own album. And I let her read the script, and I said, what do you think could be said about James Bond, you know, after all these years? And I played her the music of the front strain of the piece, and she came up with the title, which we think is the most modest title of all, called Nobody Does It Better. And so all of a sudden, that little phrase became, Nobody does it better. Once having that, the next part that I had to do was write a verse. Verses are not the most easy thing in the world. And it took me quite a while to write this verse. In fact, I left the song for about 3 or 4 weeks because the picture, I had the script in so many weeks in advance that I had much more time to write this than normally. So I let it go for a while until about 3 or 4 or 5 weeks later when I got into what is called the funky mood. I don't know what that means, but I guess it means you get down. I was told you get down. So I was down, I guess, and I started to write the verses. And then once we had the verses, I gave it back to Carol, and then she put in the lyric. And we went through, this lyric is what we would call definitely double entendre and a lot of fun, very vain. And I guess from there we decided if it was that vain we should have Carly Simon sing it. So the next thing you know, we had Carly Simon singing a James Bond song with the title Nobody Does It Better. So figure it out.
I wonder if you could explain to us how you work on the music for the film. For example, who do you work with most closely?
Most closely? Well, to be honest with you, the terrible thing about writing motion picture music is it actually is very lonely. So when you say to me, who did I work with, it takes me a while to think about it because basically, when I see the movie, everyone else has left. The stars are gone, right? So I meet with the director and the producer, and we talk, and then they leave. And they're on their little holiday, having worked 8 or 10 months on this picture, while I've just walked in fresh. So I had a flat in London. I guess I worked most closely with the maid, because she always would kind of get the room back in order after I'd made the mess. But I did not work closely in what I do with anyone else, except, of course, when I'm writing the song, which is really one, let's say if the song is 3 minutes worth and the picture has about 50 minutes worth of music, you can see where I had to work pretty much alone for those other 47 minutes. Of course, Lewis and I spotted the picture, which is you sit in a room and you look at the picture and you decide where the music's going to be and where it's not going to be.
A key sequence for which Marvin Hamlish developed the music was the ski chase at the start of the film.
In a situation like a Bond film, you have to think about the genre and all the films that have come before. So once you know that you have all that working for you, the next thing that you do, at least what I did in this sequence, was to think about the pacing. Because a Bond film, as everyone knows, it has to be bigger than life at all times. And it comes at you like smash, wham. Now, the sequence that we're looking at now is what we call the ski chase sequence. And there were a couple of things in here. This sequence has its own rhythm that you can almost see just by watching it. It starts out with this Russian spy who tells some other agents that, Bond is on his way. And there's a kind of rhythm right there that we see right at the very opening shot of the skis. You can almost feel a kind of a flow to this thing. So what I do is I run the sequence 3 or 4, maybe 5 times and look at it for just the feel. Now, once all I do then is I look at it 4 or 5 times so that I'm very aware of the sequence. And then all I do at the piano for a while is to play this next to me at the piano, to have this film next to me at the piano, play it on this machine, this rather noisy, terrible machine. And all I do is try to get a rhythm at the piano. That's all. I don't even think about a melodic line, a phrase, nothing. I just try to find a rhythm. So if I'm doing it, for instance, here they are skiing, and I might be trying boom, 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 boom. And I try that out, and I decide that's a little slow. So I might try another one. Chicka, 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 chicka. And I decide, no, that doesn't make it. And eventually, by looking at it and in a real kind of trial and error way, I come up with the beat that I like. In this case, because we're in 1977, I certainly wanted something, rock, and I wanted something very up to date. And I used a kind of a chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, which I thought had the kind of a sway for this sequence. So now I just write out the rhythm on a piece of music paper, which I must say I pay for, by the way. The company does not pay for that. I just thought you'd like to know that. The music paper I have to pay for. And I write it out in pencil, by the way. I'm a big believer in pencils because you do a lot of erasing in movies. And so I write out the sequence in just the main rhythm. And this basic, music paper that I now have, which is now filled in with the rhythm, let's say if the sequence is 1:28 seconds, I figured out where the rhythm is and all that kind of stuff. This is what I call my basic road map, very much like a map that you would get in which you only have the main towns that are, penciled in, and maybe the main routes and the main rivers. Nothing else is on this map at this moment. At this point, I go back, look at the sequence, and again, without trying to do any melodic motif at all, I go back and I decide what are the things that I want to hit, things that I want to accentuate. These things, coupled with the film, are what we call synchronization points or sync points. And again, these get just penciled in on the sketch. So now we have a sketch which is a basic road map with a couple of towns and a couple of rivers. Now is the first time that I actually begin to start to think of a melodic sequence or motif that would work with all this. And once I start putting that in to work with all these synchronization points, that's when we see the map start to come together and we start to see the little towns and the streams. One of the more interesting sync points in the picture is this spot here where Bond does this kind of loop somersault on skis. And I could have accentuated this musically by doing some kind of a big sting on this or something like that. I decided, however, that it would be more interesting to stop the music for a few seconds and let the visual carry it. So you'll see here in this section where the music actually stops, and by it stopping, it really accentuates this even more.
Could you tell us where you get the melodic theme from?
This is a lot of praying. You pray to God every night. You pray, you hope. The melodic theme really is what one would call, I guess, where do any ideas come? Where do musical ideas come from? I have no idea. I mean, I know the feel of the scene, and I know what I want to do, and I know I want it to be, let's say in this scene, very gutsy and very hard and very strong. I really don't quite do, funny enough, as much thinking about the melodic theme as I do about the rhythm, because to me, once the rhythm is right, everything else for me flows very quickly. Now, the interesting thing about all that I've said is it all sounds wonderful, I thought, in theory, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work, and the only way you can really tell if it's going to work is that I then run the sequence with the piano totally, with all my things put in, all the rhythm, the melody, everything. In fact, sometimes I even take a tape recorder and record it on tape and play it back, and I'm just sitting in my seat and watching it and seeing if it works. If it works at that point, there should be no reason why it shouldn't work with the orchestra, with the band, with the group. So I think the best thing now, having theorized forever, is to kind of take a look at the sequence and see if you like it.
In 14, take 3.
What's happened? Where are you going?
Sorry, darling, something came up.
James, I need you.
So does England.
He has just left. He has just left. Over and out.
Message received. We are waiting. Over and out.
All ready? Turn over. As you've just come in from New York, we'd like to bring you up to date on our...
Charles Berman, United Artists Director of Publicity for the United Kingdom, talks to Hi Smith, a Vice President of United Artists, at a marketing meeting on the advertising campaign for the film.
The art concept, which you've brought over with you, and I'd like you to show John and Mike.
Also present, Mike Hopkins, Director of a London advertising agency, and John Willis, Publicity Coordinator.
As far as your organization and Cubby Broccoli are concerned, Cubby has approved the art concept, and we are currently printing in the United States. We tried to give you some kind of a fresh look and to get the public to understand that this is not an old James Bond, this is a new James Bond. We have used more modern colors. We have used two major pieces of art rather than going into the old cartouche business of 23 different things happening in a Bond. Of course, Roger and Barbara Bach, and the submarines and the largest set that has ever been used for a film. I think we've captured it. Of course, we've thrown in a couple of little extras, the Atlantis scene, the underwater submarines, the wet bike, and the fact that we shot in Egypt. It's the first American film to shoot in Egypt in some 12 or 13 years. And I think we've caught it. I think that this will say a hell of a lot.
Everything's in there.
To audiences. Yeah, but everything is in there, except that you don't feel that everything is in there. There are two major focuses on the poster. You know, we of course are selling Roger Moore as 007, and we're selling the submarines, and that's set.
It also incorporates the image that was created right from the first Bond of gun across the chest.
The actual illustrative style is much more modern than the public has told us that they want that image. When we try something else, they would stay away.
We were faced with a...
Saul Cooper, International Publicity Coordinator for The Spy Who Loved Me.
This was the 10th James Bond film. The previous ones have been enormously successful. The commercial trend outside of the United States has in fact been rising. There is an upward trend. While in the United States, my feeling was that people were starting to take it a bit for granted. There was so much stimuli on the American market, such a tremendous amount of competition, that one had to persuade people that, in fact, a new generation had, in fact, been born for James Bond. And this is a theme that I have tried to hit again and again and again, the fact that there is a raison d'etre for James Bond today.
Number one, these are 4 streamers for lobby use. Number one, it's the biggest stage ever built for a motion picture, the super tanker interior, which nests 3 nuclear submarines. So it's the biggest. Next, it's the best, giving some of the underwater excitement. It's Bond and beyond, and that is the basic copy approach. And then what do you have to say about beautiful women? So we say nothing.
Some of those, particularly underwater stuff, might be useful for the promotion tie-ins with people like the car dealers, Lotus.
Right, Lotus and the wet bike people. Just another point, the UK is the only territory that is releasing in the summertime, other than the United States. The ones that we're using for the rest of the world say autumn 0077.
This picture was going to come out Christmas of '77.
The producer, Cubby Broccoli.
I insisted that we come out in July.
Why is that important?
Well, because the summer dates in Great Britain, I mean the seaside keys and seaside dates are very important when the youngsters are out of school and the young people are out of school. That's the prime time for a Bond picture. Even though there's a lot of times when the heat chases people out into the open, somehow or another Bond survives that sort of thing in most of the theaters, especially when we have lovely seaside theater dates. And the similar thing in America, where we have these open-air theaters, they're drive-ins, they call them. Those are very good, very lucrative for a Bond picture. And those, we had competition from some of the other United Artists product. And I had to go back to New York several times and scurry around and change things around a bit, because we were being sort of, maybe not intentionally pushed out, because the attitude of the distributor is, well, Bond will go. It always usually goes, and so therefore we are going to put something else in that place, and I had to fight for that one.
There's merchandising, general publicity, promotion. I'll bring High up to date on the actual advertising campaign. We're going to start, as far as the press is concerned, on July 4. We'll be going into the evening papers and a number of national papers, a number of magazines, and that will go right through to the 8th of July. At the same time, we will be going on radio.
We've got this very big buy-on capital.
Right.
And if you look at their audience figures, you know, it reaches its peak about 8:30 and goes right through till about 12. But at about 9:30, there's a total change. The statistics, unless you actually look at the men and women breakdown, appear to be the same. In fact, you suddenly get a switch right over to almost totally women. And I would have thought with a buy this big, it's worth doing 2 commercials. One probably aimed at the motoring traffic first thing. And at 9:30, when you're about 90% women, deliberately aiming it with Roger. I mean, his voice must be a tremendous attraction.
Well, he obviously can say this is Roger Moore, or some kind of an opening where we get that extra push, especially where the women are concerned, because they're less interested in the action aspects of the film, although I think that they kind of enjoy it. But when you talk to them, they're more interested in Roger and sublimating themselves into the role of whatever woman he's making love to.
So if we can move on to the promotion side of the campaign, there is a number of companies that are involving themselves with us on the promotions. The one, of course, first one I'd like to mention is the Lotus car, which is used in the film. And one of those cars, a Lotus car, will be given away as a first prize with the Daily Express. Metoy, the Corgi toy, they are producing the Lotus car cum submarine. There is a paperback being published by Panther. There is another competition to go to Sardinia, where part of the film was made.
Many film campaigns never really get beyond the so-called bread and butter operation, which means making sure there's a certain number of usable photographs and a certain amount of basic written material describing what the film is all about. That is a very modest starting point for us on this film. The idea is to go way, way beyond that into more exciting areas.
Yeah, that I take home. I take home to Atlanta.
Non parla?
Sono ungherese.
Ah, ungherese, conosci forse Gabor Pogani? Anche lui.
No, questo è all these. Who wants some more?
All publicity events start basically with attracting media. Everything from the start of shooting, if it's properly handled, becomes an event. The casting of a new actress in the film is an event. When James Bond goes to a new country like Egypt or Sardinia, where he's never been before, that can develop into an event. The European and the British promotional campaign, I would say, is very much underway. But America is still the hard sell, and there's a lot of money to be made or not to be made in America. I'm going to visit 47 cities in 9 weeks. The idea is to personally visit the top newspaper editors and top local television and radio people, and convey some of this excitement that I have about the film. Also to put in their hands material that I think is especially suited for them. And I've gone to a great deal of effort in collaboration with the publicity staff to prepare all sorts of specialized things that I can give to a newspaper editor in Cincinnati or New Orleans or Dallas and say, this is exclusive to you in your city. This is something special for you. It means having an artist, for example, do a special drawing. James Bond, Roger Moore as the head of a sphinx in the desert. Any number of things that suddenly become gimmicky or kooky or strange, or something that stimulates a Sunday editor in particular to do a big feature on the film. At the same time, I'm making very good progress with another project, which is to bring to London for the premiere a very carefully selected group of American newspaper editors. The idea of a premiere with a royal personality and all the attendant hoopla that seems quite natural here in London for a Bond film. I want to expose our newspaper editors to this type of excitement. I want to give these newspaper editors a fantastic 007 weekend in London.
The 007 weekend took place at the Intercontinental Hotel.
The amount of promotion, sets and everything that goes into it is really important. But from an actor's viewpoint, my viewpoint, I feel that Cubby brings a special kind of a love that he has for the film business, for making not just another film to make money, but to make another film that's better than the one that he made before.
What, no money? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Fine. See you in a minute.
A press conference followed the premiere. Later, the journalists interview selected members of the production team. The weekend culminates in a special James Bond dinner. Saul Cooper.
We decided that in principle, this was an exciting idea. Gabe Sumner, for example, said, Saul, we got to go for the big ones, meaning that you can spend an awful lot of time doing publicity, but time is still limited. You've got to try and go for the big ideas that will create the maximum amount of excitement. Whereupon I talked to Cubby Broccoli on the telephone about the concept. Cubby said, yes, he understands the reasoning for it, but how much is it going to cost? It's an enormous logistical operation, and you don't get started with something like this lightly. You must realize that an enormous amount of organization and time is consumed in getting something like this done in a first-rate fashion.
Und dann habe ich noch einen anderen Ring hier gekauft, weil ich wollte sie überzeugen zu smaragden, weil ich das die schönsten Steine finde.
That was almost sort of German expressionism, you know.
It was.
Yeah.
It's very MGM, actually.
Yeah.
MGM about 39, 40.
Yeah.
Because I love that. It's very much my kind of thing.
Nietzsche would have the answer for that. Maybe God wants to destroy the world. I don't know. But anyway, it's for an actor, it's fun to play those kind of characters whom you can't control, because you can't control the attitude of God, and you can't control the attitude of a man who wants to destroy the world. You know, the man I played in the James Bond film is a lunatic, and that's interesting for an actor.
Would you mind to play the villain in an Austrian production?
I would love to play a villain. They're the best parts.
And why?
Well, because they're rich. The characters are fruity. You know, you've got somewhere to go. When you're a hero, you've got very little to play with at all. You're just an extension of your own personality.
You haven't got harassment, have you?
No, I'm trying to get through to UA at the moment.
He's at a screening. I don't think you'll reach him. I've been trying to reach him.
Talk to Charles. Well, I mean...
Charles and higher at a screening. No.
That's a good time to be at a screening. Weren't they running the Bond film?
I thank you, and I thank you for all of your help, and I would like to accept this on behalf of all of Canada, the CBC, Global Network, and City TV.
Right. Do be careful with the X-rays at the
I
airport.
shall.
That's the only thing, if they should X-ray it.
I'll hide it in my underwear. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Very much.
Saul Cooper and the banqueting manager talk over details of the 007 dinner.
We discussed in the early stages about bread on the tables.
Yeah, from that point of view, it's a normal meal. You have to have bread on the table.
Well, we have rolls normally.
It'll just be there to facilitate people who eat bread.
Yeah, because Chef has got a lot of different sorts of breads. We can put some attractive baskets on.
Well, if you've got it, use it.
Do that. Also the ice carving.
Yeah.
We're doing you a special
I don't know
ice
anything about it.
but it's a special thing from us to you. We're just trying to work out the best place to put it.
What is it of?
007 in ice.
Well, I think that sort of thing, we also have a presentation to make, so that sort of thing we'll have to wait and look at.
Did we manage the 007 flowers?
Yes.
That's all done?
Yeah. Have you seen our menu?
No, I'd like to have a look at that.
Yeah. We thought as a special event for our journalists that we would go through the various Bond books and take all the very well-known Bond food and drinkmanship, and we selected excerpts from the different books and created a menu of dishes. Yes. Each one cross-keyed on the opposite page to the passage from Diamonds Are Forever or Goldfinger, and I think we've tried to create here something which is not only fun for the journalists, but something that really is something worth writing about. And I really feel confident that this will provide more fodder for all the people we have assembled here.
Where were you planning to put the picture?
Well, I don't know. The idea is it's a surprise. At the end of the meal...
Oh, so it's just going to be carried in?
We have two of the Egyptian girls in costume who are going to carry it in.
Right. So it could go behind
with the cover around it and present it to Roger Moore.
Right.
So we'll sort of have to ask him to come forward.
Right.
Here it is now. And afterwards, we will... we want some sort of easel, and it would be nice if that was next to the ice sculpture. Thank you very much.
What we planned to do is put the ice sculpture sort of at a level that is above everybody's heads. You know, people sit at about 4 foot.
Yeah.
But basically the ice carving will be high up with spotlights on it.
Yeah.
And we'll, to decorate some of these flowers, have a full arrangement either side.
Well, I think if you want the ice sculpture behind the head table, that's...
I think it'd look nice.
Fine.
It's a nice backdrop to the occasion.
Now explain the Toastmaster thing a bit, because I'm not too familiar with how that operates.
He sort of hovers around outside, basically. When it comes to a stage that you want him to do something, he then comes and...
So he would make his announcements at the beginning of the meal,
right?
Walk off somewhere
then
on the side,
hovers
and then
around
at the
during
end
the
of
meal in case you want to talk to him.
Right. And we'd have to provide him with a list of the names of the speakers at the end of the meal.
And if you want to do loyal toast and all these sort of things. And is there going to be grace?
It should be a special James Bond grace, don't you think, written by Ian Fleming's ghost. The only bad publicity is something that is not Bondian, something that does not conform with the larger-than-life image of James Bond and of what a Bond picture is supposed to deliver.
I'm my weight and all that. I'm very much the indoor person.
The Bond Martini, normally stirred, but this time we're going to shake it. Ice into the shaker, strain off any excess water that might have gone in. About 9/10 of vodka, dry vermouth, just a splash, 1/10. Top on the shaker and shake. Short, sharp shake. Strainer into the shaker and strain off the liquor. To finish it off, zest of lemon on the top. Get the oil out of the lemon and it floats on the top. And there's the Bond Martini, shaken, not stirred.
This is William Hall, famous journalist.
Thank you very much.
Exceedingly famous, notoriously exceedingly good looking. Thank you. Always spells my name correctly. It's right, M-O-O-R. So M-O-R.
Ladies and gentlemen, dinner will now be served, and with the exception of the head table, guests may sit wherever they desire. Dinner is served.
For your information, I am studying my notes for the evening that somebody else wrote in small letters. And I can't see a damn thing.
I have to say to myself, before we actually start to organize a project, is it Bondian? What will Cubby Broccoli say about it? There aren't too many brand new ideas in publicity and promotion. The important thing is to adapt them to the task at hand, which is here to dramatize James Bond.
One of Pinewood's biggest success stories.
My main job here is arranging, organizing action, ideas, and then developing them, and then of course shooting them. I have 6 very good stuntmen working for me. And I work very closely with the art department and the special effects department. Between us, we work on ideas, develop ideas, and then we offer up the finished piece, and then you see it on screen.
Well, as far as the stunts are concerned, our job here, Bob Simmons, who's the stunt coordinator, had this room built. It's 2 compartments in a train, and it's just what we call a practice box, and it's primarily the dimensions are the same and the space is the same so that we can have a feeling of the area we'll be working in. And the idea is to work out the details of where the props will be and the dimensions, and to get used to working in the area so that we can, if we have a problem with space or size or props, that we can work with the art department and make those changes that we need.
Well, my job on the Bond films really consists mainly of action, developing good action. If necessary, I still do individual stunts if it's necessary. You see, a lot of people would say to you that, well, he doesn't look like that man. How could he possibly double him? Well, that's a part of my job, part of the study of the business, that you can really double anybody. See, a very famous old director called Raoul Walsh said if the action is good enough, it could be a monkey in top hat and spats. And this is absolutely true, if you know where to cut to your double, where to cut to your artist.
And if we can discuss with Lewis, I mean, Lewis is quite open to discussion and ideas, that we can do all these things with smaller people where we have no comparison.
All right, so let's say we're going to be specific when we get round to it. So we're saying that you're going to go through the train windows, right? Yeah. Who's going to do the fall, which is the only other basic difficult?
From the top? Well, I can do that also. Well, also bear in mind, yes, any one of our people that we take out are top team. They're the best existing stuntmen we get, and any of us can do it. So you want to be specific, I know, Bill.
Yes, don't let's dispute whether we're the best or not. The thing is, I just want to be specific as to who's going to do the Jaws bit, because we get back to costumes. In any event,
well, put me down.
We're going to have to build up the costumes, and we are going to have to build you up as big as possible anyway, because although it might be an individual thing, there may be Bond in the background or something to relate to. And in any event, in that train, for example, you're going to want to look as big as possible when you go through the window.
Well,
otherwise,
it's scaffolding on the jacket.
Yeah, that's
why,
right.
Why not have it Jerry Crampton? You know, I mean, because it'd be better from your point of view if you watch it as opposed to doing it.
Yes. Well, who's going to be here? It's a train. Who's going to be here?
No, I mean, you're going to do the train. Well, I'm talking about the scaffolding in Egypt.
All right. Yes, we put Crampton in for that because I prefer to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, going through the windows. You know if you're going to get it right or not.
Yeah.
Shall we say Crampton for the scaffolding?
Crampton for the scaffolding.
He's the biggest out of the 4 we got.
Yeah. Now, what about who else performs a miracle there? Landros goes for Burton.
Landros, so I suppose you've got to double that.
We'll always have to have a double for him, won't we?
Yeah. I mean, you can't splash water all over him. Half drowning.
Yeah,
I mean, is that going to be
that
somebody
can be
else?
a separate person if you want.
But he's dead at this point.
Don't we see him get it?
Well, he's killed by the gun under the table.
Yeah.
The caving in and the water.
Yeah, but it's
So what are you suggesting? No, I'm saying a dummy job.
No,
with a mask.
Look terrible with dummy.
Also, no. The thing is that for him getting shot, we'll have to use a double. I would say from the reaction you have to do one shot on him, but we'll have to get a good reaction from somebody else. If you're going to shoot him on the table, he's not going to just slump over the table. I hope he's going to fly back.
That's right.
With
and in any
reaction.
event, you can't use a dummy with all that water going. That's what it is.
It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Bond.
You ever got the feeling somebody doesn't like you?
And beyond. Roger Moore is James Bond.
Keep going.
In the newest, most fantastic 007 adventure of all. The spy who loved me. He makes his most beautiful friends.
I have a message for you.
I think you just delivered it. And meets his most dangerous enemies. It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Bond and beyond. The Spy Who Loved Me. Rated PG.
The basic theme is that somebody or some country has a tracking device, and they've made 2 nuclear submarines disappear, one Russian and one British. And we think the Russians will do it, the Russians think we're doing it.
Well, I play a Russian spy, Major Anya Masova. And like Bond, I'm looking for a tracking system that's been stolen. And at the beginning of the film, I'm working independently from my government, and then I work with Bond throughout the rest of the film.
Closely with Bond, I know.
Pretty closely.
And then we get together. And so a Russian spy and myself go after Mr. Fishfinger in the shape of Kurt Jurgens, who has this tracking device, and an enormous underwater city, and a giant tanker which swallows up the submarines.
Talking with Roger Moore, James Bond, in London, about the new James Bond film, The Spy Who Loved Me. Roger, this film is being promoted as the biggest and the best of the Bond films, and I am inclined to agree.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I hope the public does too.
All too often, films, I think, have trouble living up to their publicity campaigns, but are you pleased with it?
Well, last night I saw it at the same time as you did. You know, the completed version, I'd seen a rough cut, and I'd seen a couple of dubbed reels. But my overall feeling about the film, you know, is that I marvel at the technology of it. Some of the matte shots in it, you know, the technical things, you know, that only people in the profession basically know what it is and the work that's gone into it. And they're masterful in that sense.
And I think one of the unsung, or perhaps not unsung, heroes of the film is Ken Adam. Who
no, he sings his name pretty loud. No, and he is, you know, he is well worth his money. In fact, he is grossly underpaid for what he does. And also his team, people like Derek Meddings, and the special effects, they're absolutely brilliant.
How do you go about preparing for a Bond film? Is it any different from any other role that you study for or prepare for?
Well, having sort of done 3, I don't really have to do much sort of homework on the background of the character, which I did before I did the first one. There are occasional things, like in the one before last, in Man with the Golden Gun, I had to do kung fu and karate, and so I had to do a crash course in that, which was very uncomfortable. But on this one, I didn't really have to learn to do anything special apart from riding the wet bike.
What is the toughest thing for you to prepare for in any
Learning
film?
lines. Well, I don't know. It's a difficult question. You know, we were talking before we started this about Sherlock Holmes. That, in itself, was a difficult thing to do. A, because of the amount of dialogue, and being very stilted Victorian English, which is sort of not in usage today. You have to really learn it. And also, I played it or tried to play it at a tremendous pace, because I felt that was the only way the character was going to work for me. And so that required preparation in the sense that I learned it, but even up until the first minute of shooting on the first day, I didn't know what direction I was going with it.
Really?
And I thought, well, maybe Boris the guy who directed it will give me a clue. And he just mapped out the shot and he said, "Have fun, Roger." And he said, "Have fun, yes, that's what I'll do, I'll have fun." So I played it like a strangulated rom-com, and it worked for me.
Do you like a lot of direction in a film, or do you like to more or less work things out on your own?
Well, I think it is important that you come to a scene prepared. You must know the character, you must know the way the scene is going. The laying out of it, you normally work out with the director. I loathe being told you're going to stand there and go there and go there. I'm inclined to say, why? You know, surely it would be better to do this. And I've been fortunate that most directors I've worked with, you know, think like I do, so I never have any problems.
Well, I don't understand really how some directors can plan things out to such a minute detail that they, in effect, exclude their actors from what they're doing?
Well, they had a program that ran on BBC here a few years ago, which was sort of in-depth interviews with directors, and there was one director who should be nameless that I had seen that particular evening. And he went on for an hour and a half explaining his films, but he didn't know what they were about when he was making them, and he said nobody did when they saw them. But he went on, you know, and it was completely nice. And I was talking with the director I was working with at that time the next day, and he had been the first assistant to Ken Hughes when they'd made, with Peter Finch, the Oscar Wilde story. And the important thing is communication. And he said that Hughes was doing an interview, more or less the same type of thing as this BBC interview, where the interviewer was saying there was such marvellous nuances of homosexuality that you obtained from Finch in his role as Oscar Wilde. There was a subtle underlying depth in the man. And he went on and on. He said, how did you achieve this with Peter? And Ken said, well, I go up to him in the morning and I say, puff it up a bit, Pete. And that basically is what direction is about. It is communication in the simplest form. You know, it's either sit down, you idiot, but not, don't you think it would be better? That could drive you mad.
But I have observed on sets, and of course you have, some directors, if they don't like what the actor is doing, they will castigate it in front of the entire crew. And that seems to me to really destroy an actor's ego, because when an actor is acting, he, you know, is in effect wearing his feelings on his sleeves.
It doesn't help. I will not mention the director's name because it may be libelous, but a man who had been his first assistant assured me it was absolutely true that an actress played a scene and he said, I cut, he said, I wind her up, I put her down, and she don't go. Get me Spotlight, which is a casting directory, and they recast the part in front of the poor actress.
That's bad.
It's not good. Yeah. I would burst into tears if they did it to me.
If you directed a film, how do you think you would treat your actors?
Well, I have directed. I directed not in film for theatrical release, but for television. Mm-hmm. I directed about 10% of The Saint and The Persuaders. Because I'm an actor and I suppose sensitive to the way actors feel, I let them play at it, then offer my suggestions. Or if, you know, you don't have time to give acting lessons in television, people have to be prepared. Mm-hmm. And I can remember one friend I was working with, because I always work with friends, it's much easier. All I had to say to him, you know, was, I think the man has ulcers. And he then immediately grabbed onto that. It was the handle he wanted for the character. And so he played it with stomachache all the way through. Maybe it was my direction.
Let's get back to the Bond film for just a minute. For those who are unfamiliar with the story, in fact, this story was not by Ian Fleming, was it?
No, the original story wasn't by Fleming either. I believe it was not. Anyway, but his wishes were that the title could be used, but not the story, because it really wasn't about Bond, the original book. It was all about some girl in a motel in New England or something.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, where does this story take James Bond?
Well, the story, James Bond sort of takes the story, actually. It is, at the beginning, 2 Polaris submarines are swallowed up by a giant tanker owned by Kurt Jürgens, Mr. Stromberg, and the Russians and the British have to get together. And so they put their best agent on it, XXX, Barbara Bach, and the British put their best agent on it. They couldn't get Sean Connery, so they got me. And it's a question of foiling Mr. Stromberg's plans to destroy civilization, because he wants the world beneath the sea.
Well, that sounds like a reasonable request to me.
Well, it's not bad, is it, if you're a fish?
How much bigger can the James Bond films get?
Well, you say that what is left? They'll find something. Cubby will find something. You know, Ken Adam and Louis Gilbert will direct the next one. They spend a long time thinking up things, finding ideas, and going all over the world looking for them. They start, I think, in about 3 weeks' time on locations in South America. where Bond has never been shot.
Mhm.
So they're going down there to find out what is unusual, what is scenic value.
And will you be James Bond in the next one?
If they put bullets in my gun, yes.
No, I wonder if there had been any thought of returning to, let's say, the simpler Bond of From Russia with Love, where it was just a spy story.
Well, I think the audiences they like gimmickry and they like spectacle. Today's market is that, the films that are popular today. And they expect that of Bond. I don't think Bond can go back to being small. I think Bond has to be bigger.
Mm-hmm. All right. In addition to James Bond, what are you working on now?
I'm going to start a film called Wild Geese, which is the story of mercenaries in Africa. In a few weeks' time, I go off with Richard Burton and Burt Lancaster.
Roger, I want to thank you for taking this time, and please come to Atlanta and see us.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
I haven't been there since they burned it down and Gone with the Wind.
It's changed.
I would hope so.
Hello, I'm Michael Wilson, producer of the James Bond films. Any actor who plays Bond is besieged by the press. Roger Moore was particularly good with reporters, offering a light touch when answering often repetitive questions. These clips were compiled from a series of interviews Moore performed with international reporters on December 5th, 1976, opening day of the 007 stage at Pinewood Studios.
I mean, I don't take a gun home and shoot spies that are running around the garden. I don't tear around in fast cars with fast ladies. I lead a normal life. If I were playing Othello, I wouldn't go home and murder my wife. Some wives, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Well, there's a great difference because The Saint was made for television. Bond is not made for television. That is one of the differences. The other difference is, of course, that Simon Templar was a private person doing things for other people to help them, and was rather a Boy Scout because of the rules of television. And Bond is an assassin, licensed to kill, and licensed to do a lot of other things because it's on the cinema screen and not television. Which one I prefer? I always prefer what I'm doing at the moment. At the moment I'm doing this, I prefer this. You have to remember that the Fleming books were written now, many years ago. I forget what year he died, but I think it's at least 15 years since a Bond book was written. And times have changed. For example, The Spy Who Loved Me, the book, has nothing to do with The Spy Who Loved Me, the film we're making. I try to make films that are entertaining. I personally, my own feelings are that if there is a message to be sent, then you can send it better by post or through the telegraph office. And apart from that, people have enough problems in the world without going and seeing them on the screen. It's better they should escape from the humdrum, normal existence into the world of fantasy and relax. That's what entertainment means. The Greek theatre meant to transport the audience to the gods, which meant you let them see heaven, which is another way of saying take oneself out of oneself. Well, I haven't, not at the moment, I don't know of anything that I particularly want to do. I wait until my bank manager says that the funds have dwindled, and then I look for another film, which may be next week. Well, no, in between each Bond film, I make 2 or 3. In fact, I've made 4 films since I finished Man with the Golden Gun. Well, there was always fantasy in Bond. It is the fantasy of Bond that I think is the thing over the years that's kept Bond going. Well, yes, there is a certain formula, but there have to always be, in that formula, there are surprises. And this, like the Bonds before it, is full of surprises. In fact, most of them surprise me. I don't know, but if you get a script, and you can find out what the plot is, you tell me. Well, immediately after this, it'll be in 5.5 or 6 months that I've been shooting. I'm going off to Switzerland, and I'm going to have as long a holiday as I can. My family,
I have 3 children, a daughter of 13, a boy of 10, and another one of 3. And a wife, of course. You can't have 3 children without a mother.
Of course.
Well, we play together a great deal. You know, they all swim with me, and they're anxious that I should continue working as I am. They're anxious for the reason that they want to continue to live into the style which I've accustomed them. And I'm anxious to keep on working to make sure that they do. The more action there is, the less lines there are to learn, which is much easier for me, because I'm one of those action actors. I jump around, and if I don't feel like jumping around, I get somebody else to do for me, because I'm lazy.
Okay.
It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Bond.
You ever got the feeling somebody doesn't like you?
And beyond. The Spy Who Loved Me. It takes James Bond to new heights of excitement and new depths of danger. The Spy Who Loved Me. Rated PG.
The film had its UK VHS release by Warner Home Video on rental in 1983 and was released in the US on the CBS Fox label.
Biggest. It's the best. It's Bond. And beyond. Roger Moore is James Bond. The Spy Who Loved Me. Rated PG.
The soundtrack was composed by Marvin Hamlish and was also met with success, with the Bond theme being sung by Carly Simon called Nobody Does It Better.
Nobody does it better. The way that you hold me, whenever you hold me. Nobody does it half as good as you. Darling, you're the best. Baby, you're the best.
It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Bond. And beyond. The Spy Who Loved Me. He makes his most beautiful friends and meets his most dangerous enemies. The Spy Who Loved Me. Rated PG.
Don't forget The Spy Who Loved Me, coming this summer.